Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Friday, October 24th, 2025, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App $ ORIONNWSF or the YouTube super chat right here. We got the Los Angeles Dodgers versus the Toronto Blue Jays, World Series game number 1. First pitch is going to be here in just a few minutes. So let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get into the starting lineups. Happy Friday, everyone. The best player in the game, Shohei Otani. And on the right, a first baseman stud, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now let's get into the starting lineups here first for the visiting Los Angeles Dodgers. Leading off for the Dodgers at DH, Shohei Otani. Batting second, playing shortstop for Los Angeles, Mookie Betts. Batting third, playing first base, Freddie Freeman. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, catching today for the Dodgers, Will Smith. Batting fifth, playing right field, Teoscar Hernandez. Batting sixth, playing third base, Max Muncy. Batting seventh, playing left field, Kike Hernandez. Batting eighth, playing second base, Tommy Edman. And batting ninth, playing center field, Andy Pages. And on the mound for the Dodgers, superstar Blake Snell. And now let's get into the starting lineups for the home Toronto Blue Jays. Leading off for the Blue Jays at DH, George Springer. Batting second, playing left field, Davis Schneider. Batting third, playing first base, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, second baseman today, Bo Bichette. Batting fifth, catching today for the Blue Jays, Alejandro Kirk. Batting sixth, playing center field, Dalton Varsho. Batting seventh, playing third base, Ernie Clement. Batting eighth, playing right field, Miles Straw. And batting ninth, playing shortstop, Andres Jimenez. And on the mound for the Toronto Blue Jays, Trey Yesavage. And we're going to be shooting for 100 likes, 100 on the Dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Once we hit that, we'll go 200, 250 to 100. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Friday. And obviously, there's a little bit of a hangover effect. Obviously a lot of us, Mariner fans are still kind of, going through the motions and whatnot, 3 innings away, from being in the position that Toronto is and being in the World Series. And again, we had a fantastic year. And again, we have a very bright future, moving forward. Got to be able to take care of business on re-signing guys like Josh Naylor and Jorge Polanco. We can let guys like Caleb Ferguson, Eugenio Suarez, and Mitch Garver go. Obviously, at this point, with what we have in the farm, Naylor is a little bit more important than Gino at this point. And again, we need to improve the bullpen. That is one thing that obviously late in the matchup, Bizzardo, it shows you he was our greatest asset in the bullpen pretty much all year, was better than Spire and Brash, and even great players, mess up sometimes. And if it wasn't for one bad pitch right down the middle by George Springer, I think the Mariners would have won the game 3-1, and we would be in the position right now as Toronto, a huge underdog. It's a David and Goliath story. A majority of the world is assuming the Dodgers are going to win either in 4, 5, or 6. We'll see what happens, obviously, here in game number 1. My dad is a big Dodger fan. He's been a Dodger fan since the 50s. And obviously, that's who I'll be rooting for as well, to be able to win this World Series and for the Dodgers to go back-to-back with Otani, Betts, and Freeman. Mike in the building, what's good? Whiskers in the building, what's good? Julie in the building, what's good? Daniel in the building, what's good? David in the building, what's good? Marine Bean in the building, what's good? Yeah, there's no way in hell I would be rooting for the Blue Jays. There's absolutely no way. So, not after what happened with us. So, but again, there will be some people that will be rooting for the Blue Jays for the American League's sake. And there's going to be people that don't have a connection like I do with my family, with the Dodgers and whatnot. So I totally get it. But, we'll see how this game plays out. And it's going to be a 2-3-2 setup. So obviously first 2 games in Toronto, 3 games in Los Angeles. And then if we go back to game 6 or game 7, it'll be back in Toronto if we get to that point. And definitely excited to be able to see, this great pitching matchup with Trey Savage and Blake Snell. And again, we'll be doing every single game of the World Series. So how it'll play out is we'll do game 1 today, game 2 tomorrow. They have a day off to fly to Los Angeles. So we'll do Sunday night football on Sunday between the Steelers and the Packers. Aaron Rodgers going against his former team. That should be exciting. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would be game 3, 4, and 5 in Los Angeles. So that's what we're going to be doing here on the channel for the next 5 or 6 days. And definitely excited to see some competitive baseball here moving forward. Let's get it, baby. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. And they are just getting settled in after player introductions. So we will get to first pitch here momentarily. And for a guy like Trey Savage, to start off in single A and find himself starting game 1 in the World Series is a wild ride. Maybe we can have something like that with Cade Anderson in the future. And Blake Snell, this might be the biggest pickup as far as pitchers going from one team to the next. And Blake Snell always had the capability of being a great player. There has been some injuries within the last few years, but this year for the Dodgers, absolutely electric. And I'm very excited to be able to see what we get with the lefty going against the righty here today. And obviously everyone knows how good Shohei Otani is, right? Everyone knows how good Mookie Betts as well as Freddie Freeman. But it could be guys that aren't really expected to be the X factor, but guys like Kike Hernandez, a guy that, might be batting normally, 180 to 200, during the regular season, but really ramps it up in the postseason. So definitely excited to be able to see what X factors that we get. And then we finally get Bo Bichette back on the roster. Ty France, believe it or not, the former Mariner, is on the Blue Jay roster as well. And again, I'm not sure if we're going to see a whole lot of Ty France, but Bo Bichette obviously is in the lineup. And normally he plays shortstop. This is the first time that he's played second base since he's been in the farm. Shortstop and second are pretty similar. And again, we didn't have to face Bo because of the injury in the ALCS. And I don't know how effective he's going to be in this particular World Series, but I guess we'll find out here as we get into game 1 here in just a few minutes. Bricks and Joysticks in the building. What's good? I mean, I'm heartbroken too. Imagine how the Brewers feel. Obviously they played much worse than we did. And, obviously I feel with our emotions, we were 3 innings away, from making it, and the Brewers had no chance. Especially when you get blasted by Los Angeles. And, even if the Mariners did make it, we would be super big underdogs, just like Toronto. It's like a David and Goliath story. But to be that close and to be ahead 3-1 at that point and pretty much dominated that whole game, and one bad pitch by Bizzardo, who was our best player in the pen at that point. And it just shows you, great players sometimes mess up. And again, I had to take 2 days off after, the whole ALCS Game 7 kind of transpired and the Blue Jays advanced and the Mariners got eliminated. And, I could have done a Kraken game. I could have done a Blazer game, but again, I was a little heartbroken. And again, it took me a couple days, to try to, get through it and get past it. And again, this is something that we have to be proud of. If you would have told a lot of Mariner fans at the beginning of the year that they were going to actually win the AL West and not get second place to the Astros, people would have been pretty excited about that. And then not only that, to go to ALDS Game 5, 15 innings and win against the Tigers, amazing. And then to be in a position to be able to make the World Series, but it just shows you, we're a few players away. Pitching was hurt all year. 4 out of the 5 starters were banged up besides Castillo. The bullpen, as the year went on, kind of got progressively worse and a little bit less trustworthy. And again, we need to be able to filter out, some of the players, that maybe aren't necessarily going to be a fit moving forward based off payroll or age. And again, I'm definitely excited where this team is going. You have to think, we had 1995, 97, 2000, 2001, and then we had a 20-year drought. And then in 2022, Cal Raleigh showed up on the scene, hit that home run against the Athletics, and then we ended up going to the postseason. We played the Blue Jays. We beat them, right? They got payback on us, obviously, this year. But we've gone to the playoffs, 2 times in the last 3 years. And I think that, after Cal Raleigh was so emotional saying that the season was a failure, in most cases, that wouldn't necessarily be true, right? Because obviously, we won the AL West for the first time in 20 plus years. We went to the ALDS and we won. We went to the ALCS Game 7 and we lost, but we got there, right? But again, for the Mariners, it was never, can we, make it to the ALDS, ALCS? It's kind of like, let's get to the World Series and let's win it all. So again, if we can change our mentality and kind of have like a, Dodger mentality where it's kind of World Series or bust, again, we have to prove that we can go to the playoffs more than just 1 year in a row. We have to be able to prove that we can win the AL West more than 1 year in a row. But once we start doing it year in and year out, again, I think that the standard and the bar has been raised. And I think that's going to be a good thing for not only Seattle, but for the Seattle fan base. And, again, you got to take baby steps. You got to crawl before you walk. And a lot of times you got to lose before you win. And you got to be able to feel that pain of what it felt like to lose, to be able to have that motivation to not have that happen again. And again, I do feel like the next 10 to 20 years for the Mariners are going to be very, very exciting. And I do believe that we will make a World Series or 2 in the next, 10 to 15 years. And it's just about when we get there, what do we have as a roster? And hopefully we can, eliminate some of the weak links, get some better players in the bullpen, bring some farm guys up, watch the evolution of guys like Cade Anderson, join the starting lineup. I assume that we'll, possibly try to trade Castillo, in the offseason, even though he's locked in for a few more years. Obviously, if we can replace Castillo for Cade Anderson, that would be ideal. And again, letting certain individuals, go like Caleb Ferguson, Mitch Garver, since we have Harry Ford. And obviously, if you have to choose between Naylor or Gino, we're going Naylor. Gino is great with all those home runs, and he had that miraculous Game 5 home run early and the grand salami. But the bottom line is his defense, isn't what it used to be, and he strikes out too much. And obviously we know Ben Williamson will never, hit 40, 50 home runs more than likely in a season, right? But his defense is much better. And if we can just get him to be hitting 15 to 20 home runs, that would be good enough probably for third base. But again, Josh Naylor is irreplaceable. We have to get Nails locked in. And again, then once that happens, the rest of the chips will fall. And I do believe that we will get better, we'll get stronger. And again, I'm definitely excited to be able to see what happens here between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, but I'm more excited to be able to see the future of the Seattle Mariners, get better and better. And again, in the next 20 years, if we go to the playoffs 13 out of 20, there should be a good chance, as long as we keep investing in the team based on Dipoto and the GM and the ownership group like they have in the last 2 years. It shows you if you invest in the team, you're going to get good results, especially when you're that close to being able to get there. And you got to think our payroll is like 200 million less than the Dodgers. So again, if we can actually get the ownership group to spend a little bit more money than usual, on guys that are worth it, like Josh Naylor, not like guys like Robinson Cano back in the day, invest well, on guys that are proven that can win and that can hit in Seattle, which is, not an easy thing to do. And then again, we'll see where the chips fall down the road. But I'm proud of the team. And it was a disappointment, the way that how everything ended. But again, you got to crawl before you walk. And a lot of times, if you want to be able to be a champion, you got to be able to go through those hard times before you're able to, have that victory lap, so to speak. And, again, I'm still a little bit hungover, based off the loss, not based off alcohol, but just the pain of the Mariners losing in Game 7. But again, these are things that we're going to have to go through together as a fan base. And the regular season can't start quick enough, as well as spring training. We got about 4 months to go, obviously, once this World Series ends. And I'm very excited about that. So, Cal is great. Julio, if he figures out how to have a good first half of the season and second, he could be in the 40-40 club. Hell, maybe even the 50-50 club one day, right? Cal is the best catcher in the game. And again, we can get Naylor, figure out, the guys in the farm. Colt Emerson, more than likely will get called up. And again, the team is going to be better, moving forward. So, we just have to be able to be patient. And again, it's not like we go to the playoffs every year. Trey Savage on the mound and Shohei Otani in the box. Otani leading off, Mookie Betts on deck, and Freddie Freeman batting third. And we are just about to get started here on first pitch. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Got a new one that I'm going to debut here tonight as well. My guy has just been grinding, and I'm so proud of him. He's been able to, change his life, from where he was a few years ago to where he's at now. And the work ethic is finally there, based off the talent. And we will continue to keep debuting great, background music on the channel, day in and day out. Shout out to my boy Brooks. All right, here we go. First pitch from Savage to Otani. Low and at the knees. Four-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, 1-0 count. He's an incredible talent. 1-0 pitch. Takes a strike looking high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Shohei Otani. 1-1 pitch. Fouled off right down the middle. Four-seam fastball with some heat. 94 miles an hour from Savage. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Shohei Otani. One-two pitch, high and inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Savage to Otani. Same as well, Mike. Again, I don't even listen to music on my free time. I just listen to, his beats and, his creativity. I'm his biggest fan. And, if I can make someone else's dreams come true, to a certain extent, I'm going to try to do my best. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss right down the middle. And down goes Otani. Trey Savage with the first punch out. And right out of the gate, Trey with some electricity for the Toronto fan base. Down goes Otani, swinging on strikes, 1 away. Next up is shortstop Mookie Betts. Yeah, I can't wait for next season. As soon as the game ended, I was already looking forward to spring training. And again, everyone's fandom is going to be a little bit different. But yeah, I can't wait for spring training and to get back on the grind again. I mean, obviously, we're going to continue the grind with everything else, up to that point. But definitely, I can't wait for the Mariners to get going again. 1-0 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and no strikes to Mookie Betts. 2-0 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and at the knees. Slider nasty by Savage, 88 miles an hour. 2 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and 1 out. 0-0 here early in the World Series Game 1, Dodgers and Blue Jays. 2-1 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away on the line. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Mookie Betts. Yeah, usually I go to 1 to 3 games, but obviously, me grinding on the channel, I was only able to go to 1 game on the 4th of July, and that's kind of the, tradition that I have with my best friend, and then we're going to try to do pretty much every game besides the game that I go to next year. 2-2 pitch, low and away with the slider. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Mookie Betts. Let him know, Jason. 3-2 pitch, and Betts grounds out to the shortstop. Throw to first, and that is 2 away. Next up is Freddie Freeman. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the Dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's go. First pitch to Freddie Freeman from Trey Savage. Fouls it off right down the middle. 4-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour by Trey. 0-1 count. What's good, brother? Let him know, Jason. 0-1 pitch, fouled off right down the middle. No balls and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Go M's all day, every day. Obviously a lot of the Mariner fan base is still in a little bit of pain, including myself, but again, you just got to keep, moving forward, looking forward, and not looking in the rearview mirror. We had a fantastic year, and, it hurts to lose in the ALCS Game 7, especially the way that we dominated that game, and we were 3 innings away. But again, if you would have told most of the fan base that we would have gotten to that point before the year started, I think that a lot of individuals would have been very happy, with that, particular, outcome. Not the outcome of Game 7 on how it ended, but getting to Game 7. And a little slow dribbler by Freddie, and throw to first, and that is out number 3. Because you got to remember, this year was the first year that we actually won the AL West in like 20 plus years. We didn't even know if we could do that. We figured we'd make the playoffs maybe as a wild card, right? And we were able to beat the Astros, and they didn't even get in, and we ended up winning the division. We went to the ALDS, and it took us to Game 5, 15 innings. We won that, and then, we ended up getting to the ALCS, and once you get to that point, you're not thinking losing. You're thinking of going to the World Series and winning it all. So for Cal, to be so heartbroken, as well as the rest of the team and the fan base, to say that the year was a failure, it's because we have high standards, with this team, and the organization, is going for it, which is something that we haven't really seen other than the last 2 years. So, if we can continue on this path, it's inevitable that eventually we will get to a World Series, and we may not win the first time that we go. But again, we will end up going to 1 or 2 more than likely in the next 15 to 20 years. And if we go to 1 or 2, hopefully we're able to win at least 1. And that way we can be champions at least at 1 point for the Seattle Mariners. And let's see who's up next here for the Toronto Blue Jays in the bottom of the first inning. Leading off for the Blue Jays at DH, George Springer. Batting second, left fielder Davis Schneider. And batting third, first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Well, my situation is a little bit, different, than everyone else. Some people are going to root, for the Blue Jays, even though they beat the Mariners because it's American League and the Dodgers, are the National League, and obviously they're, Goliath and everyone else is David, right? But with me, my situation's a little bit different because my dad has been a Dodger fan since the 50s. He actually lived in LA growing up as a kid, moved to Hawaii, Oregon, but he actually grew up in the Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale era. So for me, anytime that I'm not watching the Mariners, I'm rooting for my dad's Dodgers. So I don't really have a normal situation, like most people, where you're going against the Dodgers, maybe in this case, but there's no way I can root for Toronto after them beating us in Game 7. And honestly, if the Brewers were to make the World Series instead of the Dodgers, I probably would have been rooting for them. I can't root for a team that beat us. So, again, it's like rooting for the Astros. If they would have beat us in the same situation, can't do it. So, but again, for me, since my dad has been a fan, for such a long time, 60, 70 years, I'm obviously going to be rooting for the Dodgers to get it done. First pitch, high and away, four-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, 1-0 count. Blake Snell on the mound, George Springer in the box. And a little chopper, right to Mookie, throw to first, and that is one away. Good defense there by Mookie Betts. Next up is left fielder Davis Schneider. First pitch, high and away, four-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking right down the middle, 1 ball and 1 strike to Davis Schneider. Plus I ended up meeting Sandy Koufax, with my dad when I was 10, so we have a history between the Mariners and the Dodgers and whatnot. So, and again, if I'm a Mariner fan, I can't root for any other team in the American League, besides my own team. So, and Schneider pops up to Mookie, and that is 2 away. But I don't consider, the Dodgers like really my second team. That's my dad's team. He's just, rooting for the fam. Next up is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. First pitch from Snell to Guerrero. Takes a strike looking low and away with the changeup, 88 miles an hour, 0-1 count. Snell on the mound. Guerrero Jr. in the box. That's a good question. Obviously we torched him in the ALCS, so that'll be something that we'll have to monitor as the games go on. 0-1 pitch. High and inside, four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour by Snell. 1 ball and 1 strike to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 1-1 pitch, high and inside, four-seam fastball with some heat, 96 miles an hour by Snell. 2 balls and 1 strike. Here in the bottom of the first inning with no one on and 2 outs, 0-0 here early in the World Series game number 1. 2-1 pitch, low and at the knees, slider missing off speed, 89 miles an hour, 3 balls and 1 strike to Vladdy. Three-one pitch, takes a strike looking low and away. In the zone with the changeup, 87 miles an hour. Count now is full, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Three-two pitch, fouled off, high and inside. Four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour by Snell. Count is full, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as he rips that one down the third baseline. Foul. Bottom of the first inning, 0-0 here early in the World Series, game number 1. Nobody on and 2 outs. Snell on the mound, Guerrero Jr. in the box, and that is ball 4. Vladdy to first. And first base runner to the game, Vladdy. And welcome back to the Toronto Blue Jays. Second baseman, Bo Bichette, normally plays shortstop, hasn't played, second base since he's been in the farm system back in the day. But there's not really a whole lot of difference between short and second, pretty similar. But again, we will see how he adjusts to the new position tonight and to see if he can get on base, based on that long injury that he's had for quite some time. First pitch, high and inside by Snell. Four-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, 1-0 count. One 0 pitch, high and inside. 2 balls and no strikes to Bo Bichette. Nah, but I'll never root for anybody that beats us or anybody in the American League. If you are in the American League, then it's your team and that's it. There's no way in hell I would be rooting for the Blue Jays or the Astros or anyone else that advances, especially if that team beat us. No way in hell. 2-0 pitch, high and inside. 3 balls and no strikes to Bo Bichette. But again, it really depends on how much of a fan you are. If you're a fanatic, if you're a bandwagon, if you're a fair weather, someone that only watches when the team is doing good, and there's a difference. So depending on your level of fandom, that'll determine, who you root for and how much you actually care, about the team itself, as well as the rivals that you go against. So 3-0 pitch. And in play, and Bo Bichette with a nice hit into right field. And Vladdy going to third, safe. Nice job by Bo Bichette there. Next up, catcher Alejandro Kirk. First pitch from Snell to Kirk. High and away. Four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour, 1-0 count. If the Blue Jays actually win the first 2 games at home, then obviously it's going to be going 6 or 7 games. Obviously if the Dodgers win the first 2 games on the road and they got 3 games at home, you would assume it would be over in 4 or 5, but again, the Blue Jays, do have, quite a bit of talent on the roster. I think the Mariners, top to bottom are better, but we just couldn't get it done. One bad pitch from Bizzardo, ended the season, but again, the Blue Jays are here for a reason. And again, it's a David and Goliath matchup. The Dodgers are Goliath, the Blue Jays or the Mariners would have been David, and they would be, heavy underdogs, either one, Toronto or Seattle. But again, you never know. If there ends up being like a minor injury, to Shohei, Mookie, or Freddie, that could really swing the series one way or another. Same thing goes, with Springer and Vladdy. If one of those guys has a minor injury, that could sway the series, quite a bit as well. So 1-1 pitch, high and inside, 2 balls and 1 strike to Alejandro Kirk. Blue Jay in the building. What's good, brother? Yeah, I'm a fan, so, it's not like I care only, about the Mariners. I love sports. I'm a fanatic, so, we're going to keep grinding it out. We'll do all the World Series games. On Sunday, when they go to travel to LA, we'll do the Steelers and the Packers. Aaron Rodgers going against his former team. And then once baseball is over, we'll transition into the NFL, college football, and then we might end up doing a little NBA or NHL to kind of, have filler streams until we get to baseball season again. 2-1 pitch, high and inside. 3 balls and 1 strike to Alejandro Kirk. Three-one pitch, fouled off right down the middle. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. And no one thinks the Blue Jays are Goliath. Get the fuck out of here. I mean, if you're a biased Blue Jay fan, you might think that. But no one on planet Earth besides Blue Jay fans thinks that. Come on, my guy. Now, with that being said, do the Blue Jays have a chance? Yeah. I mean, anytime a team is playing, they have a chance. But I mean, it's okay to be the underdog in a series instead of thinking that you're something that you're not. 3-2 pitch, fouled off high and inside. Count is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. I mean, tell me you're biased without telling me you're biased. A statement like that proves that right there. You can't even accept the role of being David. Runners at first and third in the bottom of the first with 2 outs, 0-0, Dodgers and Blue Jays. 3-2 pitch, fouled off low and at the knees. Count is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. 3-2 pitch, fouled off, low and inside. 4-seam fastball there by Blake Snell. And Snell has definitely not looked as sharp as he had, against the Brewers. But I do believe that the Blue Jays are better than the Brewers. So obviously this competition is going to be a little bit harder, than what we saw the Dodgers dominating Milwaukee. And just foul. Bottom of the first inning, runners at first and third with 2 outs. Blue Jays threatening. And again, if Toronto wants to force this to an extended, longer series, obviously winning these first 2 games at home is critical since you're going to have 3 on the road. And if you can win 1 or 2, again, that'll put you in a position to possibly, stretch it out to game 6, game 7. And again, if there's any type of minor injuries or if they just get hot at the right time, anything can happen. And Kirk is walked. And again, sometimes you assume that the Dodger pitching and the hitting and the defense is going to be like what they had against the Brewers. But again, Snell not looking anything like he did against Milwaukee. And again, that is a credit to obviously the Blue Jay hitters, as well as Snell just being a little off here in Toronto. And again, when Snell is on, he looks like a different type of player, and he definitely looks off today. Next up is Dalton Varsho with bases loaded and 2 outs. And let's see if he can end up getting an RBI here or if he'll leave him stranded. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking low and at the knees. 1 ball and 1 strike to Dalton Varsho. No soccer on the channel. I mean, if the World Cup is on, and there's something, worth doing, maybe that, but, I'm not going to be doing soccer on the channel. It would have to be a special circumstance like World Cup or something. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Dalton Varsho, and that was a nasty slider there by Snell, 89 miles an hour. Bottom of the first inning, 0-0. Dodgers and Blue Jays in World Series game number 1. Snell on the mound, Varsho in the box. And that is popped up, and that is out number 3. I guess some Blue Jay fans don't know how to be humble. Let's see who's up next here for the Dodgers in the top of the second inning. End of the first, 0-0, Dodgers and Blue Jays. They keep bases loaded, stranded, and we'll see if they have another chance to be able to get on the board. And obviously, based on how Snell pitched, they got to feel really good that the score isn't 1-2, 3-0 at this point. Next up for the Dodgers, in the 4-hole, catcher Will Smith. Batting second, right fielder Teoscar Hernandez. And batting third, third baseman Max Muncy. Yeah, I'm a more of a NASCAR fan myself. Like, sometimes, when we're waiting for baseball to get going, I'll do the trucks or the Xfinity or the NASCAR Cup Series, a few races, as we're just waiting for spring training and the regular season to get going and whatnot. But the Chauncey situation is terrible for a lot of us that are Blazer fans in Oregon or Washington, obviously since the Sonics don't exist, and they will be back at some point or another. But obviously we had a young team, great draft pick with Yang, got Drew Holiday to come in to give us more defense with Donovan Clingan and, Shaden Sharp. And it's like we have a young, fun roster, but now with the whole gambling thing and, obviously Chauncey's going to be going to jail and, there's no future for him, in the NBA ever again for his legacy and everything else. It's terrible. I mean, the NBA is already losing a lot of ratings, compared to the other, main sports, the MLB, the NHL, and the NFL. Hell, even college football, gets better ratings and whatnot. And then you end up having a scandal like that. Not ideal, and whatnot. I'll still watch Blazer games. I'll still go to a couple a year. But again, this distraction, of not having Billups there, and just with everything with the media circus that's going around, trying to interview players, it definitely is going to take away a little bit of the focus. At least for this season. And it's not like, Northwest fans expected the Kraken and the Blazers to make the playoffs this year. We were hopeful that the Kraken and the Blazers would be able to do it on the NHL and the NBA side. But again, both are kind of young and have a lot to prove. And it still may take a couple years to get to that point. So. Yeah, and I will be tuning into a little bit of that Warriors Trailblazers game as well. Should have won game one against the T-Wolves, but Anthony Edwards is still one of the best players in the game, and he took over in the last 5 minutes, and that was the end of the Blazers after they dominated the first three quarters. First pitch, high and away to Will Smith from Savage, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and no strikes to Will Smith. 2-0 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away. 2 balls and 1 strike in the top of the second with nobody on and no out, 0-0 Dodgers and Blue Jays. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. 3-1 pitch. High and away, and that ends up being a walk there from Savage to Will Smith. Next up is right fielder Teoscar Hernandez. And kind of sad, that the way that the world is set up, is that as far as like people that stream and people that are making a living doing certain things like myself, no one wants to see someone have joy and win. They want to go on there when your team is losing so they can talk shit and rub it in. That's what's wrong with the world. No one wants to support each other, and congratulate each other when, something good happens, as long as it doesn't happen to them, and they can end up making a comment, if they're miserable and they can try to bring someone else down, that's kind of sad. That's kind of the life that we live in now, that people would rather come into a stream that's not even their own, fan base and just come in and talk shit instead of just, going to a normal stream of maybe their own team, or just being more positive. But, I guess that's just the way the world is. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Teoscar Hernandez. 1-1 pitch, takes a strike looking low and at the knees, paints that corner beautifully, Trey Savage. 1 ball and 2 strikes with a runner at first and no outs. Teoscar in the box, Savage on the mound. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the pitching plays out. Snell obviously didn't look very good early on, but we'll see if he settles in. But he didn't give up any runs, and that's the big thing. And Teoscar with a little slow dribbler, double play, and not in time. Fielder's choice at second, and that is one away. Next up is Max Muncy. First pitch, takes a strike looking right down the middle from Savage, 0-1 count. I mean, you're kind of new to the channel, but I've been doing the World Series, for years now. So obviously I've been doing this for 13 years. This is my 9th year on YouTube. So, next year will be 14 years of streaming and my 10th year on YouTube. But I always do the World Series, regardless if the Mariners, were potentially going to get there and be in it or not. That's not going to change the fact if I do them or not. So I'm always going to do the, whatever the big event is for that day. And Muncy with a nice single to left and Teoscar scampering into second and a nice base knock there by Max Muncy. But again, I've done pretty much everything on the channel. Started off with reaction videos for like football, NFL, college football, soccer, rugby, things like that. And then obviously transitioned to live play-by-play and reactions and, do baseball, basketball, football, hockey, NASCAR, pretty much everything. Next up is Kike Hernandez. First pitch is high and away, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike swinging high and away, four-seam fastball, 93 miles an hour by Savage to Kike Hernandez. Yeah, because not only am I like a fanatic for the Mariners, I mean, I love baseball, and it's kind of one of those things, I think, when you're younger, you love it to a certain degree. And then as you get a little bit older, I don't know why it is, but I feel like if you were a person that liked, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, hockey, whatever, when you're young, and then obviously as you get a little bit older, you'll start to transition a little bit to what you like a little bit more. And Kike with a big single to center, and Teoscar coming home, 1-0 Dodgers. There we go. And again, Kike Hernandez is the X factor. And again, you just don't really know what you're going to get out of Kike, but it just seems like in the postseason, he always ramps it up. Nice job by Kike Hernandez getting a big RBI once again, and he will be the X factor here in the series. Nice job, Kike. Next up, one of the heroes from last year, second baseman Tommy Edman. Dodgers doing what the Blue Jays were unfortunately not able to do with bases loaded. You got to be able to get that next guy to be able to knock him in. First pitch, low and inside, four-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour, 1-0 count. But obviously I love the NBA, when I was younger, but again, it's not the same in the Jordan, Bird, Magic era, even in the, Kobe Bryant, Shaq era, that was better than what we see now. So, and obviously my love for baseball, kind of replaced the NBA and some other things. And again, obviously very excited to be here. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, high and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes with runners at first and second and 1 out, 1-0 Los Angeles. But also, I think it shows, the skill set and the range. There's some channels that only do like one thing. And, here we can do pretty much anything. And obviously that takes a lot of, preparation and a lot of reading and film study to be able to know what you're talking about and whatnot. But again, a lot of this stuff is just second nature to me as it is. 1-2 pitch, low and into the dirt. Good eye by Tommy Edman there. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Savage to Edman. And obviously the Blue Jay fans are desperately trying to get out of this inning with only giving up a run. But again, with runners at first and second and 1 out, you never know with this Dodger team. They are very dangerous. 2-2 pitch and a little dribbler towards third. And look at that. No play at first. And that's what the Dodgers do. They'll be able to beat you, a number of different ways. And now they got bases loaded. And for the 9-hole hitter, Andy Pages. Yeah. But again, Blue Jay, you guys have done that to the Mariners, and we've done that to you as well. It's not like you expect that play to happen, but sometimes, when you're reeling a little bit, it's kind of those like unexpected plays, like the third baseman drops it, or it ends up being a bunt, or a slow dribbler, and there's no play on the ball. You're like, there's no way. But when you end up playing greatness, and they end up giving up a couple normal hits, then you have to expect the unexpected. The unexpected grand slam, the unexpected bunt, the unexpected slow dribbler to third, and there's no throw. It's like, for every one or two plays that are expected, you have to expect the unexpected play at some point. And the Dodgers are really good at that. You just never know when they're going to strike. And when they do strike, they do it in many, many different ways. First pitch to Pages from Savage, takes a strike looking in the corner, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, fouled off right down the middle with that slider from Trey. No balls and 2 strikes to Andy Pages. Bases loaded, and it's crazy we've had bases loaded already for both teams early. I'm not sure if anyone really anticipated that. Absolutely, Ricardo. And that's really what it's about. Again, there are some people that love, the NBA or the NHL or WWE or the MLB. It's kind of like a niche thing. Obviously the NFL and college football is probably the easiest to watch, and whatnot. But, it takes a special individual to love, the NHL, to love the NBA, to love NASCAR, to love baseball. It's definitely not going to be for everyone. And obviously going to a game in person is much different than watching it on TV. 0-2 pitch, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Andy Pages. But for me, meeting Ken Griffey Jr. when I was 7 and then meeting Sandy Koufax when I was 10, that changed my life forever. And if I didn't meet Griffey and if I didn't meet Koufax, maybe I'm not here today. Maybe I'm doing a gaming channel, or maybe I'm doing music, making beats with Brooks, or, doing something else, and it definitely changed my life for the better. I mean, it's not often that the 2 famous people that you meet end up being the best left-handed pitcher to ever pitch, besides Randy Johnson and Steve Carlton, and the best left-handed hitter with the best pure swing that didn't do PEDs or steroids in Ken Griffey Jr. So I was very blessed at a young age. Pitch is high and away. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Andy Pages. High and away and low and away. 3 balls, 2 strikes, bases loaded with 1 out, and they are desperately needing a double play to get out of this inning. Three-two pitch, big swing and a miss, and that's a huge out from Savage. Nice job there by Trey with the game kind of, on the line here, with what you got going on. But just when you think you might have been able to get out of the jam, next up, 0 for 1 with a K, Shohei Otani. And again, we'll see if Otani can get a RBI home run, or if they're able to strike him out maybe here early. And you got to think, you might be able to strike out Otani in the first couple at-bats, but at some point, he's going to get you. He always does. First pitch, big swing and a miss. He was going for a moonshot there in Toronto. 0-1 count. Oh, Paul Molitor? That's sweet. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Shohei Otani. Yeah, and I was blessed to meet Ken Griffey Sr. because he was there also. Very, very, genuine, good person. And Griffey Jr. was super shy. Koufax was a gentleman, and very private. Pitches high and away with that splitter by Savage. 2 balls and 1 strike with bases loaded and 2 outs. Savage on the mound, Otani in the box. And that is in play. Otani grounds out to first, and the Blue Jays get out of it, only giving up 1. And again, that's huge, because again, if Toronto wants to keep this game close, they want to have the fans, to be able to keep rooting them on. You don't want the game to be 5-0 in the second inning and then the crowd gets quiet and then things get progressively worse and worse for Toronto. For Toronto to split in the first two games or to win the first two games, they're going to need the crowd to be able to give them that extra juice, in this series at the very beginning of the World Series here in Game 1 and Game 2. Let's see who's up next here in the bottom of the second inning for the Toronto Blue Jays. Next up for the Blue Jays, third baseman Ernie Clement. Batting second, right fielder Miles Straw. And batting third in the 9-hole, shortstop Andres Jimenez. On the mound will be Blake Snell. And both pitchers have been a little off than what we maybe expected. But again, the hitters on both teams, there's quite a few of them. So, you never know how each game is going to kind of play out. Some matchups might be a pitching duel and it might end up being a 1-0 or 2-1 kind of game. And then there might be games where we get really high scoring affairs with a bunch of home runs and ribbies, and it might be like an 8-7 final. So you're going to get a little bit of everything. And then there might be something in between, like a 4-3 final as well. So definitely excited to be able to see where this World Series goes. All right, we're at 32, 18 more likes to get to 50. Let's get there. All right, let's take a look at the pitch counts. So Savage, 2 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 2 Ks. He's at 44 pitches, 25 strikes. And then Blake Snell, 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, no earned runs, 2 walks, no Ks, 30 pitches in that first inning, 16 strikes. And I don't think anybody anticipated 30 pitches for Blake Snell. I mean, he and every other pitcher, Yamamoto, Otani, and everyone else, made the Brewers look very weak. And again, you're not going to get the same type of result, the Dodgers against the Brewers against this Toronto team. Toronto is much deeper. 0-1 pitch, high and away. No balls and 2 strikes to Ernie Clement. Even though the Brewers did have an amazing regular season, sometimes, if you don't have postseason experience, sometimes, it's just too much. It's too big of a moment sometimes for certain players that might have been able to dominate in the regular season or early in the playoffs. And a nice base knock there in front of Kike Hernandez, and a nice job there by Ernie Clement. Nice job by Ernie, giving him a little electricity here in the second inning. Next up is Miles Straw. First pitch, takes a strike, looking low and at the knees. 0-1 count. Well, the main difference with the Blue Jays already, compared to the Brewers, you're actually showing that you can hit, and you're able to get some base hits and have that confidence. It's like when you watch the Dodgers and Brewers, it's like they couldn't even really hit, let alone get runs. They couldn't even get a hit. So there's the difference there. They were able to dominate in the regular season, and, they were doing okay early on, but again, once they, matched up against the Dodger pitching, again, I don't know if I've ever seen a team that was that good in the regular season, just not being able to hit at all, and obviously that's how we ended up getting the sweep. 1-1 pitch fouled off, and that is out of play by Miles Straw. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Snell to Straw. Bottom of the second, 1-0 Dodger lead with a runner at first. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. Down goes Straw, and that is 1 away. Next up, shortstop Andres Jimenez. And it'd also be interesting to see, whose 7, 8, and 9 hole hitters, will be better throughout the series. Everyone talks about the 1, 2, and the 3, and the guys in the middle of the order, the 4, 5, and 6. But the 7, 8, and 9 are so important to a team's success, as well as the bullpen. That doesn't get enough recognition as well. First pitch is low and away by Snell. Curveball off speed, 79 miles an hour, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and no strikes to Andres Jimenez, who had an absolutely fantastic series against the Seattle Mariners. 2-0 pitch, takes a strike swinging right down the middle. 2 balls and 1 strike to Andres Jimenez. Two-0 pitch, big swing and a miss. 2 balls and 1 strike with a runner at first and 1 out. 1-0 Dodger lead. 2-1 pitch, fouled off right down the middle with the slider, 89 miles an hour. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Andres Jimenez. Two pitch, big swing and a miss, high and away, and down goes Andres Jimenez, and that is 2 away. Snell starting to lock in a little bit after that poor first inning that, was bases loaded, but they were unable to capitalize. Next up, DHing, George Springer. A thorn in the Mariners' side, regardless if he's on Houston or Toronto. 1 bad pitch ruined the Seattle Mariners season, and sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. Bottom of the second inning, 1-0 Los Angeles. And Springer with a little slow dribbler, and there was no throw, and safe at first. Now runner towards goes third, and out. Wow, should have stayed at second there. That was bad base running. And again, that was a crazy play right there because he looks, Freeman goes to second. There's nobody there. So he turns around and tries to go to first. The throw is late. That's safe. And then you end up getting a runner in Clement, I believe, that got a little too greedy right there and tried to go to third. Should have stayed at second. And there was no way in hell that he was going to make it. You have to have a little bit more awareness. And it kind of reminds me of the Seattle Mariners right there. It's like you end up having this crazy play, right? But you have to not get too excited. You have to understand what's going around you. And obviously you were lucky that there was no throw at second. So you ended up being safe. Take that. Don't get greedy and try to go to third. I know you're down 1-0, but again, poor base running will lose you a game. And I can obviously speak on that because, Seattle Mariner fans are very familiar with that. How many times did we get caught in between the base paths? How many times did we get caught sleeping a little bit too far off first base or second base? And again, how many times did we get caught, running wildly from one base to the next without really realizing what's going on? And that's unfortunate. He should have stayed there. And again, it was, a kind of a, play that was broken, but you have to understand what's going around you there. I kind of feel bad for the Blue Jays in that instance, but again, I have like those same feelings where you're like, no, what are you doing? Like, again, sometimes you just got to be patient and accept what you got, in that play itself, and then hope that next guy will be able to drive you in instead of getting greedy on the base paths there, especially if you're going to get greedy, against the Dodgers. They're going to get you more times than not. End of the second inning, 1-0 Los Angeles. Crazy like how a good play for Toronto can end up turning into a negative play when the play is completed. Like, it ended up being good initially, but then it turned into a little bit of a mini nightmare there. Let's see who's up next here for the Dodgers in the top of the third. Next up for the Dodgers, 0 for 1, Mookie Betts. Batting second, 0 for 1, Freddie Freeman. And batting third in the cleanup spot with a walk in his first at-bat, Will Smith. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. We needed 32 subs to get to 23,200 when we started the stream off. And we gained a couple subs. 30 to go to hit 23,200. We're still looking for our first dono on the dono train. And if you haven't hit that like button yet, please do. It'll help us with obviously the analytics and the numbers moving forward. First pitch, high and inside. Four-seam fastball, 93 miles an hour from Savage, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Savage to Mookie. 1-1 pitch, high and away. Four-seam fastball, 93 miles an hour. 2 balls and 1 strike to Mookie Betts. Two 1 pitch, low and at the knees. Slider off speed, 87 miles an hour. 3 balls and 1 strike to Mookie Betts. 3-1 pitch, and that ends up being a walk. Mookie to first. Next up is first baseman Freddie Freeman. First pitch to Freddie, fouls it off right down the middle, 0-1 count. And and again, as a Mariner fan and a lot of people in the room that are Mariner fans as well, we've had that same type of scenario happen many, many times, whether it would be Julio or Polo or Gino or someone else. And, it definitely hurts, when you feel like you can tie the game up or take the lead, but just a little bit of, being impatient, on the base paths ended up costing them possibly an opportunity. Not a for sure, thing, but again, if he would have stayed at second, you never know, that next guy up might have been able to bring him home. 0-1 pitch, high and inside, 1 ball and 1 strike to Freddie Freeman. Yeah. Also, they did have, a game 7, and then obviously the Dodgers had, about a week off. And normally teams that have a week off usually lose, but the Dodgers are much better than those teams in that previous graphic, that ended up having a week off. They were not built like the Dodgers, so there's a little bit of a difference there. 1-1 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and 1 strike to Freddie Freeman. 2-1 pitch, high and away. Four-seam fastball, 93 miles an hour by Savage. 3 balls and 1 strike to Freddie Freeman. And you have to assume, the Dodgers are going to hit that big home run, within the next probably 3 innings. And again, you just have to hope, if you're a Blue Jay fan, that it ends up being just a solo dinger. But if you keep walking guys or, having some struggles with Savage or the pen, then it's going to turn into a 2-run blast, a 3-run jack, or a grand salami. And then if that happens, it might be already over at that point. They may not be able to come back if they're down 4 or 5-0. They might be able to score a couple before the game ends, but obviously if you get the crowd out of it, by the 5th or the 6th inning, it's going to be real tough to be able to, not only fight the Dodgers, but not have the crowd behind you either. Runners at first and second now with no outs in the top of the 3rd. Pitching hasn't really been the greatest for Savage or Snell here early. And we'll see what Will Smith has got in his bag here up next. First at bat was a walk. First pitch takes a strike, looking low and at the knees. It's 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch takes a strike, swinging right down the middle. 4-seam fastball, 93 miles an hour. No balls and 2 strikes to Will Smith. Top of the 3rd inning, runners at first and second with no outs. 1-0 Los Angeles. 0-2 pitch, low and away. Slider missing badly there. 88 miles an hour by Savage. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Will Smith. Appreciate that, Ron. Not what we wanted. We wanted to be here, playing against the Dodgers, but it was a fantastic year. Winning the AL West for the first time in 20 plus years, winning against the Tigers in Game 5 in 15 innings in the ALDS, and 3 innings away from making the World Series in Game 7. Again, I think every Mariner fan would have taken that. If you would have told them at the beginning of the year that they would be in the ALCS in a Game 7, I think, every Mariner fan would be excited for that. So just, it didn't end up the way that we wanted. 1-2 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Will Smith. 2-2 pitch, low and away. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Will Smith. Yeah, Savage started off in single A, and then made his way to being Game 1 starter in the World Series. And I'm hoping we get a similar type of thing with Cade Anderson, where we can have him, work his way in the farm and then eventually be on the roster. And if we can trade Castillo away, that'll open up spot for Cade to be in the starting 5. So then we can have Wu, Kirby, Gilbert, Miller, and obviously Cade Anderson, our first-round draft pick from LSU that just won a natty. And he's a lefty. Oh, nice base hit there. And Betts hustling, and he is safe. And Freddie is getting caught in between the base paths. Another bugaboo. It's not just the Blue Jays. The Dodgers have an issue with it as well, but not after a runner scores. Mookie Betts, after an RBI by Will Smith, 2-0 Dodgers. And it shows you the Dodgers are still going to make mistakes as well. They're not going to play 100% clean. They're going to make mistakes as well, as Freddie not paying attention and getting caught in between the base paths there. But a great RBI by Will Smith, 2-0 Dodgers. Next up is Teoscar Hernandez. And again, Teoscar is a guy that you have to really pay attention to, because just when you think that the game is, somewhat in control, he ends up hitting a 2-run bomb, and then you're down 4-0, and then things are getting out of hand. First pitch fouled off, low and away, 0-1 count. Yeah, and again, if you got, $350 million, roster, I mean, Shohei Otani, Hall of Famer, Mookie Betts, Hall of Famer, Freddie Freeman, Hall of Famer, Will Smith, a great player, Teoscar, a great player, Muncy, usually an above average player, but he does get hurt. Kike, not good in the regular season, but great in the postseason. Tommy Edman is a good role player, and Pages has gotten better, from the beginning of the year till now. So, not many teams can match, 1 through 9. As well as the pitching staff and the bullpen that they have, even though their bullpen has been a little shaky besides Sasaki or Roki. 1-1 pitch, high and inside. 2 balls and 1 strike to Teoscar Hernandez. No, the Indiana loss won't hurt the Ducks, and it's actually good that they did lose during the regular season instead of going undefeated and then getting absolutely throttled like Ohio State did to them, last year in the playoff. If like you go 12-0 and you have 3 weeks off, you're going to lose. So you want to keep playing. So I think if the Ducks lose a game or two, we'll be just fine. And as long as we're in the playoff, we'll kind of see where the chips fall. But obviously Ohio State still looking like the best team in college football, but they don't look invincible, but they look really, really good. 2-2 pitch, high and away. No, low and away. Count is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Teoscar Hernandez. And a hit right up the middle. Throw to first. And nice stretch there to get that out. 2 away. Great defense there by the Blue Jays and great ability to stretch. And again, we were used to it with the Mariners having Josh Naylor, and they obviously have Vladdy there. And again, that easily could have been a play that didn't happen. But a great job there for Vladdy adjusting his body. And a pretty accurate throw, considering, where that ball was and where his body was right there. Next up is Max Muncy. Top of the 3rd inning, 2-0 Dodgers with a runner at 3rd and 2 outs. First pitch is low and away, 1-0 count. Yeah, good play by Bo. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking low and at the knees. 1 ball and 1 strike to Max Muncy. Top of the 3rd inning, 2-0 Los Angeles with a runner at 3rd and 2 outs. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Max Muncy. One-two pitch, high and inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Max Muncy. And it's not going to always be Otani, Betts, and Freeman that beat you, or even Teoscar. They have so many qualified individuals, you never know where it's going to come from. And down goes Muncy, and they're able to stop the bleeding momentarily. 2-0 Dodgers. Big swing and a miss there by Muncy, and a nice punch out there by Yasavage. Let's see who's up next here in the bottom of the 3rd inning for Toronto. $30 subs to go to 23,200. Next up for the Blue Jays, 0 for 1 left fielder Davis Schneider. Batting second, 0 for 0 with a base on ball, first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And batting third, 1 for 1, playing second base, Bo Bichette. All right, we're at 40 likes, 9 more to 50. So if you are in the room and haven't hit that like button yet, please do. And once we get to 50, we'll try to get to 100 at some point before the stream ends. We're still looking for our first dono on the dono train. Middle of the 3rd inning, going to the bottom of the 3rd inning, 2-0 Los Angeles. And if you're just tuning in to the stream here or the game, Kike Hernandez singled the center. Teoscar scored 1-0 Dodgers in the top of the second inning. And then in the top of the third, Will Smith singled to right. Betts scored, making it 2-0 Los Angeles. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. My boy. Snell on the mound. Davis Schneider in the box. First pitch to Schneider, takes a strike looking with a curve from Snell, 78 miles an hour, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch, high and away, four-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour by Blake Snell. 1 ball and 1 strike to Davis Schneider. Yeah, I know, Austin, 3 innings away, and we had the right guy in. Just, it shows you great players sometimes mess up, and all it took is 1 bad pitch right down the middle to Springer. And again, if that doesn't happen, I do believe the Mariners would have won 3-1, and that would have been the score the rest of the way. But again, you got to give the Blue Jays credit. They, made the big play when it counted the most. 2-1 pitch. Big swing and a miss, low and away with the changeup. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Davis Schneider. But I am excited about the future, and I do believe that we will make a World Series at some point, and I do believe we will win one at some point. We just have to, go through, the losing before we end up winning. And Schneider strikes out swinging, and that is 1 away. Jordan in the building. What's good? My favorite Reds fan in the building. What's good, brother? How are you? Next up is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And obviously, when your team loses in the playoffs, it hurts and it stings. But again, I'm not just a Mariner fan. I'm a baseball fanatic. So there was no way that I was going to miss this World Series. How you doing, Jordan? Bottom of the third inning, 2-0 Dodgers. First pitch from Snell to Vladdy. High and away with a four-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour, 1-0 count. One-0 pitch, big strike looking there on the corner by Snell. Changeup, 86 miles an hour. 1 ball and 1 strike to Vladdy. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, high and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I mean, Dan obviously, at times, didn't know what he was doing, obviously being a first-time manager, and it showed, pulling guys too soon, leaving guys in too long, bringing in the wrong guy at the wrong time. But again, when you make it to the ALCS Game 7, you have to keep rolling with him. So again, and it's like in baseball, it's not like in college football or NFL where you can end up promoting a coordinator, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and making him a coach. It's like, you're normally going for guys that are former players, and there's not a lot of talent that's available. It's not like you're normally able to get a guy, from college, but obviously we did see that happen earlier today. So with the Giants and whatnot, but it's pretty rare to see someone coming from college, and taking over as the, head coach. It's more like, the Kurt Suzuki situation as a former player and then being a manager one day. And a nice single by Vladdy to left. I mean, obviously, if there was someone like a Bochy that was available, if they fired Dan, then I would be, definitely excited about a guy like that. But, at this, point in time, they're going to probably stick with Dan. I mean, look how long they, stuck it out with Scott Service. So you assume that Dan is going to be the manager probably for the next 5 to 10 years, more than likely. So first pitch to Bo, big swing and a miss, 0-1 count. He did win one of the awards from, I don't know if, there's like different awards from different organizations, not just from the MLB, but, other, outlets. And double play, got him. Wow. What a beautiful double play by the Dodgers there. But again, there was, at one point or another, like voted by the other managers and whatnot. So. End of the third inning, 2-0 Dodgers. Let's see who's up next here in the top of the fourth inning for the Dodgers. Next up for the Dodgers, 1-for-1 with an RBI. He will be the X factor in the World Series. Left fielder Kike Hernandez, already making a difference in game one. Batting second in the 8-hole, second baseman Tommy Edman, who came up big last year for the Dodgers. And batting third, 0-for-1 with a K, center fielder Andy Pages. Yeah, I mean, again, when you have a payroll of, $350 million, and you end up getting so many quality players, it's going to be tough to be able to beat a team like that. There's no doubt about that. Let's take a look at these stats for the pitchers up to this point. 3 innings pitched for Savage, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks, 71 pitches, 36 strikes. And then with Snell, 3 innings pitched, 4 hits, no earned runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks, 56 pitches, 33 strikes. So after having a 30-pitch first inning, he settled in and settled down quite a bit. And now Savage is, 15 pitches higher in the pitch count. So, again, Snell can, go from 30 pitches in 1 inning and then really settle in. And he has in the second and the third. 4 hits apiece. So Toronto is doing something that Milwaukee couldn't do, hit. But again, having bases loaded, stranded in the first definitely, kind of calmed the crowd and the Uncle Mo and the momentum, so to speak. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. We've gained a couple already. We need 30 to go to 23,200. First pitch to Kike Hernandez. Big swing and a miss. 0-1 count. Yeah, I always do the World Series. I mean, there's a lot of people that, have tuned in just this year, but again, I've been doing this for 13 years. This is my 9th year on YouTube. Next year will be 14 years streaming and my 10th year on YouTube. And I've been doing the World Series for like the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So, I've been doing it for quite some time. And obviously this is the first time that the Mariners actually almost got there. But again, I am a fanatic, obviously, of baseball, and regardless if the Mariners are in the big game or not, I'm always going to do it. So good to see you in the building, Coy. 0-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down goes Kike, striking out swinging, which is rare, and that is 1 away. Nice job by Savage getting a little bit of electricity on Kike Hernandez. Next up is Tommy Edman. First pitch, high and away, 4-seam fastball, 92 miles an hour, 1-0 count. I don't think it's a curse whatsoever, and again, it's just about building a team and getting the, GM and the owner, Dipoto and everyone on the same page that you have to spend some money, in free agency and at the deadline, at the trade deadline to improve the chances if you already got, cornerstone pieces like Cal and Julio to build around, as well as a great pitching staff. We just need to improve the bullpen, get rid of Caleb Ferguson, get rid of Mitch Garver because we have Harry Ford, let Gino go. And again, make sure we sign Josh Naylor and Jorge Polanco back. And then, continue to build this team in the right direction. So again, records are meant to be broken, and again, it's just about finding the right team at the right time to get the job done. But I don't think it's a curse. Again, we had 20 years where we didn't make the playoffs, and, not every Mariner fan is built the same way, but, I watch every, game, beginning to end, and Edmund strikes out swinging, and that is 2 away. So even when we had no chance of making the playoffs for 20 years, that didn't change my attitude towards the team, and again, there's different levels of fandom. There's, bandwagon fans that only cheer when the team is good. There's fair weather fans that catch a game here and there, and then there's, regular fans, the hardcore fans and the fanatics. So, depending on your level of love and commitment to a team, there's different levels of fandom, and not every fan is in the same category or same book. So, but I do feel that we're on the right path, and we've already made the playoffs 2 times out of the last 3 years. And, we just need to continue to try to win the AL West as Pajes flies out to right on the first pitch. And that is out number 3. I mean, we've already gone, pretty much all in the last 2 years. I mean, we got Randy at the deadline, obviously 2 years ago. We got Gino and Naylor at the deadline this year. It's just about improving the bullpen, and then obviously if you have to choose between, Naylor or Gino, you're going Naylor. He's more beneficial to what we're trying to do, offense, defense, age, overall vibes. Gino's great with those home runs, but again, strikes out way too much. And, unless Gino is willing to take less money, and that way we can build the team the right way, then I wouldn't be opposed to Gino coming back, but only if he takes like a huge discount, but again, if Gino wants to get paid, then he can obviously get paid somewhere else. But again, we have certain priorities, and obviously even Polo would be more valuable than Gino, I think at this point moving forward. So. Edgar and Seitzer were the hitting coaches all year, and we even got a little help with Ichiro as well. So, we got the right players in place. It's just about replacing, some of the weak links, getting a little bit more depth, getting better players in the bullpen. And then hopefully our pitching staff doesn't have 4 injuries out of the 5 starters. We've never been injured before. And then all of a sudden we have 4 guys hurt. The only guys that didn't get hurt was Luis Castillo, La Piedra, but Kirby went down, obviously Miller went down, Gilbert went down, Wu went down. And imagine if Wu was healthy, that could have been the difference. If we were able to actually use Wu for 2 games and he pitched 6-7 innings, maybe we are in the World Series at that point if Wu didn't have the big injury. So again, injuries can cost you. But again, we still had, even with all the injuries, we still had a team good enough to make it. It was just one bad pitch from Bizzardo, and we were 3 innings away from, getting to the World Series. But again, coulda, woulda, shoulda. We have to, just appreciate that what we saw in 2025 and give us a little bit of motivation moving forward. And if we can hold ourselves to that high standard, World Series or bust, and actually mean it, then again, we are going to be able to get there sooner than later. Just like when Cal Raleigh said, the season is a failure. In retrospect, it wasn't. We won the AL West for the first time in 20 years. We got past the Tigers and the ALDS. We got to Game 7 in the ALCS. But when you have a team that's good enough to make the World Series and possibly win it, and you don't, then, that's what Cal is saying. So, again, if we can hold the standard, like the Dodgers, where it's like World Series or bust, obviously they have 200 million more in payroll, it's a little different vibe. But if we can kind of, act like, we're the American League version of the Dodgers and have that mentality, like World Series or bust, at some point we're going to get there and we are going to win. I mean, we might not make the World Series and win it the first time we get there, but I do believe that we will win one in the next 20 years. Hopefully it'll be soon. 0-1 pitch, fouled off, low and away. No balls and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. Yeah, Ben is a great defender at third, but he's not the greatest hitter. So we need to get his, skill set, to a point where he can hit 15 to 20 home runs in a season. And then if he's able to have the great elite D and then get 15 to 20 homers, even though it's not Gino's 40 to 50, that'll be just fine. But we need Naylor more than anything. That's the number one priority. 0-2 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. One-two pitch, fouled off, high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. One-two pitch, fouled off, high and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. Bottom of the 4th inning, 2-0 Los Angeles. I appreciate that, Ricardo. Pitch is low and at the knees. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Alejandro Kirk. Yeah, but that Wu injury really, really hurt us. Because again, he was our best pitcher all year. All-star. Kirby and Gilbert weren't as good this year. Miller and Castillo were streaky. So, I mean, if we had Wu, during the whole playoffs, maybe we don't even go to ALDS Game 5. All the way back to the wall. Beautiful hit by Alejandro Kirk. And he has to scamper back to first base. And, again, that would have been, obviously if he was a little bit faster and based on where that ball landed, getting a double off a hit like that would have been ideal. But a very good hard hit ball into right field there. And Teoscar just gets it off the bounce. And that's a nice single there by Alejandro Kirk. Yeah, there's 0% chance you choose Gino over Naylor. Gino strikes out way too much and his defense isn't very good. Back, and gone. There's the home run. Dalton Varsho with Kirk on board. Back. And just like that, we got a 2-2 game. Wow. There we go. And Dalton Varsho, he says, you know what? I might not be the best center fielder in the game, but I'm going to step up here. 3rd home run in the postseason. And now the crowd is in it. 2-2. We're knotted up. There we go. Gino can make plays at times at third, but he's not as good as he was the first time around on the Mariners. Like if you look at his stats and analytics, he's been kind of progressively getting a little bit worse defensively. Still can make a play here and there, but Naylor's great at D, great at O, a great leader, and he can actually hit in Seattle, which is something that we normally don't see from anybody that we sign. He actually can hit, in Seattle, which is something that most guys can't do. Hardest hitting ballpark to hit at. And Dalton Varsho coming up big there. And Blake Snell can't believe it. And first pitch to Clement, flies out to center in a pop-up, and that is 1 away. If Ernie was a little bit more patient there after the home run, but you get so juiced up when you get a big home run that usually it'll turn into some easy outs after the big play. Down goes Ernie on the first pitch. Next up is Miles Straw. And I'm happy the Blue Jays hit that home run. So that way we're not sitting, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 Dodgers. We actually can have a fun, World Series to be able to watch, as a group. First pitch fouled off by Straw. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch in play, and Straw lines out to left. Another quick at bat, feeling the juice of Varsho, getting his big home run. If you just end up being patient and end up taking those, pitch counts to pitch 4, pitch 5, maybe you turn that into a walk. Maybe this turns into a single. But again, it's kind of nature, in baseball. Next up, shortstop Andres Jimenez. First pitch low and away with a curveball, 81 miles an hour, 1-0 count. Bottom of the fourth inning, 2-2, Dodgers and Blue Jays. One-0 pitch, fouled off, high and inside. 1 ball and 1 strike with nobody on and 2 outs. Bottom of the fourth inning, 2-2, Dodgers and Blue Jays. And this Blue Jay effort in the World Series Game 1 at home is already better than what we saw out of the Brewers in 4 games, right, in the NLCS. So, again, nice to be able to see the back and forth with these two teams, even though I would, much rather have Seattle playing Los Angeles right now rather than Toronto. 1-2 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Andres Jimenez. Bottom of the fourth inning, 2-2, Los Angeles and Toronto. 2-2 pitch, and Jimenez strikes out looking, and that is out number 3, but not after Dalton Varsho with a big 2-run blast to be able to tie this game up. And obviously that got the crowd, out of their seats, and they've been pretty quiet for the last 3 innings. Not anymore. The game is tied. Let's go to the top of the 5th. 2-2, Dodgers and Blue Jays. And then Fluharty is going to come in for Yasavage, so Yasavage day is done. All right, so Mason Fluharty is coming in. Obviously next, time around. And let's take a look at Trey's final numbers here. All right, so Trey's final numbers: 4 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 5 Ks, 80 pitches, 44 strikes. And now Mason Fluharty is coming in the top of the 5th. Leading off for the Dodgers, 0 for 2 with a K, DHing Shohei Otani. Batting second, shortstop Mookie Betts. And batting third, first baseman Freddie Freeman. And we gained 3 subs since the last commercial break. Thank you to all the new subs that we've acquired, not only today, but in 2025. 27 subs to go to 23,200. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. We're still looking for our first dono for all the hard work that we put on this channel. And obviously we look for 5 to 15 subs. Once we hit that, then we'll continue to go on the secondary goals. Let's go. Every dollar counts. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, Varsho and a lot of the other center fielders, I think I might have seen that one. I mean, I try to watch as much baseball as I can, not just Mariners, so. Otani isn't superstar-ish. Otani is the best player ever. Who in the hell can get fucking 10 Ks and hit 3 home runs in a game? Not even Babe Ruth. I mean, we're literally looking at the best player that has ever played. Again, Babe Ruth pitched and hit, but Otani is doing things that even Babe Ruth didn't do. And again, Judge is great. Cal Raleigh is great, but Otani is the best player playing right now. 0-1 pitch, big swing and a miss. No balls and 2 strikes to Shohei Otani. The format from last year is flawed because, again, you go 12-0, and then instead of getting rewarded, you have 3 weeks off, and then it rewards the teams that have a loss or 2 that continue to play week in and week out, like the Buckeyes or Ohio State. So if they don't change that rule, then the system is going to continue to be flawed. And again, it was already flawed when we had the BCS, not, putting the best matchups together. And a lot of times it's for money and ratings, even though they won't admit that. And not every voter that gets a vote in college football actually watches the games. So, you can definitely tell that some of these people don't watch West Coast sports, that are on a little bit later and whatnot, and definitely based on their voting, it shows. 2-2 pitch, and Otani strikes out looking. And that is 1 away. Down goes Shohei. Next up is Mookie Betts. But hopefully they'll be able to figure out, because again, if you go undefeated and you have 2 to 3 weeks off, why go undefeated? It's better to lose a game or 2, like the Buckeyes, and then play every week and then continue to stay hot and healthy, have that continuity and that chemistry, and then you have a better chance of winning instead of just going 12-0, having 3 weeks off. Hopefully the team can get hot again. And with that much time off, it's just too much, and then and if you notice last year, every team that had a bye lost. So it wasn't just an Oregon thing, it was an everyone thing. So 1-0 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and no strikes from Mason Fluharty to Mookie Betts. Two-0 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and 1 strike to Mookie Betts. I mean, do you have to understand how crazy it is to pitch, a game, which most guys can't do, right? And get 10 Ks and then hit 3 home runs? You're never going to see anybody else do that, and again, it's a very blessed time that we're alive where we get to be able to see these amazing talents in 2025. 2-1 pitch, takes a strike looking, high and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Mookie Betts. And again, Aaron Judge is going to go down, as the modern day, whoever you want to compare him to, in this particular era, as Betts gets a single to center. If you want to compare him to a Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, type of player, obviously there's a lot of greats from back in the day, and Judge is going to definitely cement his legacy, when it's all said and done. And, when it's all said and done with his numbers, when you compare it to a lot of the OGs, people are going to be kind of shocked. He definitely is a very special player, and hopefully Cal will continue to be great, and he'll go down in, history as one of the best catchers of all time when it's all said and done. First pitch from Fluharty to Freeman, high and inside, 1-0 count. Well, he already got a $700 million deal. 10 years, $700 million, and they already made the money back in 1 year. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking right down the middle. I mean, when you talk about contracts, you think $200 million, $300 million. You don't really think about $500 million or more, but sometimes in baseball, it's going to hit that number. And at some point, we will get $1 billion contract, over a 10-year period. It's almost inevitable. At some point, it will happen. 1-1 pitch, fouled off high and inside by Freddie. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. I mean, I'm not just a Mariner fan. I follow everything, And again, I think people will start to realize that, it's not just one sport or one team. I follow everything. I usually read about 3-4 hours a day. So, it's something that I'm definitely committed to. 1-2 pitch, fouled off right down the middle. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Top of the fifth inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays. 1-2 pitch, fouled off, high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Yeah, and I take a lot of pride in it too, that I can pretty much do basketball, baseball, football, hockey, NASCAR, WWE, AEW, UFC, boxing. I can, and again, if I didn't read or watch film, there's no way in hell I would be able to do that. It's hard enough to try to be an expert for one team, let alone try to be an expert on, every team, on every league, which is not easy. So. But you're on it, my guy. You understand. Top of the fifth inning, 2-2 tie with a runner at first. Fluharty on the mound. Freeman in the box. And Freeman, high, center field, pop up and caught. And that is 2 away. Fluharty definitely got lucky there. Next up is Will Smith. All right, Sir Anthony Dominguez coming in, and down goes Fluharty. Sir Anthony Dominguez coming in next. We're at 49 likes, 1 more to 50. If you haven't hit that like button yet, please do. Every single metric number matters. Likes, subs, views, donos, shares. Help your boy out. Top of the fifth inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays with a runner at first and 2 outs. Sir Anthony Dominguez coming in and Will Smith in the box. Yeah, there's some similarities there. Gabe has more of a higher ceiling, but again, we've seen both guys, fold like a lawn chair at times as well. So, Scorpia, appreciate that. Appreciate you. Wrestling, I love it, and it's not a sport, it's entertainment, and again, anybody can wrestle, but not anybody can talk shit on the mic at an elite level, so again, if you're able to be witty and creative and you're able to talk shit in a certain type of way, and then you obviously have the athletic ability to entertain, obviously, there's a lot of people that can wrestle, but if you want to be an icon or a legend, you have to be amazing on the microphone, and there's not very many people that are top tier on the mic. Again, you usually get a few here and a few there in a few different federations like AEW and WWE, but obviously since WWE merged with ESPN and they're trying to make you pay $30 a month, that is not ideal for me. Popped up, and Will Smith flies out to right. Sir Anthony Dominguez does his job, and that is out number 3. Now, if they would have made it like $10 a month, kind of like Peacock, then I would still continue to do, WWE PLEs once a month. And that was the only reason that we were going to miss a Mariner game, once a month. WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. I love it, right? But I'm not paying $30 a month, and again, I can still watch it, on a streaming link, but then it's like, 30 seconds behind, and I can't do a live stream with that. So, it kind of is turning me off for the first time in a long time where, I'm not going to be watching as much WWE and AEW. I used to watch Raw and SmackDown and NXT and AEW Dynamite on the regular basis. I don't anymore. And then obviously I would like to watch the PLEs or the pay-per-views, and I usually would keep up on that. If I wasn't watching Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or Dynamite or Collision as much. But even the PLEs now, it's kind of taking a back seat for me, especially when you're getting too much greed, out of TKO and WWE, raising not only their ticket prices, but I'm not paying $30 a month to watch one PLE. So moving forward, we're probably going to be doing like every Mariner game. There won't be like one game off a month for WWE anymore, unless they end up lowering their price to like $10 a month, and then I would consider it, but there's no way in hell I'm paying $30 a month. Let's go to the bottom of the fifth inning with a great matchup here. World Series 2025, Dodgers Blue Jays knotted up at 2. Next up for the Blue Jays, 1 for 2, DHing George Springer. Batting second, 0 for 2 with a K, left fielder Davis Schneider. And batting third, 1 for 1 with a base on ball, first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Oh man, 80s, 90s was great. I mean, I'm a big toy collector too. So I mean, I collect sports cards and toys and Transformers, GI Joes, Ninja Turtles, starting lineups, Star Wars, McFarlane's, you name it, I got it. And 95% of my collection is still in the box, like mint condition. So, but I still got some old school wrestling figures from the late 80s, early 90s. Bushwhackers, Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, some of those figures that I had. But I love Legion of Doom, Animal and Hawk, the Road Warriors. I'm a big NWO guy, Hollywood Hogan and, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Macho Man. I'm a big Macho Man guy, RVD, Sabu, and ECW. So I don't really necessarily have like one favorite. And that pitch from Springer hit into left field to Kike Hernandez, and a nice single there from Springer. But again, Rock and Stone Cold. I mean, there's just so many, people. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, Undertaker. There's plenty of pieces of, individuals that I enjoyed watching back in the 80s and 90s. From every federation, WWF, WCW, and ECW. First pitch to Schneider, low and at the knees with the curveball off speed, 80 miles an hour, 1-0 count. Superfly Snuka, I got a figure of him as well. Old school one from like the late 80s, early 90s. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking right down the middle. 1 ball and 1 strike from Snell to Schneider. Bottom of the fifth, 2-2, Dodgers and Blue Jays. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Absolutely. Got to sign Naylor, number 1 priority. 1-1 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 1 strike from Snell to Schneider. Two 2-1 pitch, takes a strike looking low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Davis Schneider. Schneider in the box. Snell on the mound. Yeah, fantastic, man. And again, this is a new one that he just made a day or two ago. And again, such a intelligent, creative person. I don't think I've, we used to do phone sales together for like big companies where we would set up people, cable, internet, and phone, for business owners in like New York and Boston. And, I had a lot of amazing friends that were super talented. And again, like out of everyone in our friend group, I felt like he was the one besides myself that would be able to make something out of nothing, and not have to work a traditional 9 to 5 for our whole life. We would be able to kind of do our dreams and our passions. Obviously mine was sports and with him with music. And, I'm just glad that we're able to, kind of, feed off of each other, encourage each other, motivate each other. And also, me being able to help him out, being able to, get his music, a little bit more exposure, as well as, him giving us some great background music, not only this year, but every year moving forward. 2-2 pitch, fouled off, low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Davis Schneider. And double play attempt, and got him. Well, the amount of equipment that you have to have, to do what I'm doing, it's like the lighting and then my iMac and then the speakers and the microphones, it just would be, I would love to be able to do like a live show at a bar, or something like that if, the bar owner was cool with me to do something like that. But, it takes a lot of space and a lot of moving parts to do what I do. And, again, some people, end up just doing a basic show. I got to fully produce the show on the fly, as well as, do live by, play-by-play, color, the chat, the music, and produce the show and be the host of the show. So it's, it's one of those things that, maybe in the future, if the, cards line up, doing a live viewing somewhere, could be possible, but, for now it'll be obviously here in the studio. 0-1 pitch, takes a strike looking high and inside. No balls and 2 strikes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Oh, 2 pitch, and that is lined. Edman is there, throw to first. And that is out number 3 to Freddie Freeman. End of the 5th inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays. Oh yeah, nobody wanted to mess with Haku. Yeah, there was a lot of guys that ended up getting into fights, backstage and, obviously working out and, like a Gold's Gym. And, a lot of the wrestlers, ended up, going to the same type of places together. And obviously when you have that much personality and steroids and other things that are going on, you're going to get loose cannons and whatnot. And yeah, I've definitely read some crazy stories, based on some of wrestlers' activities, obviously when they're not in the ring. And unfortunately, if you watch like Dark Side of the Ring and you watch some of those shows, a lot of our, idols or people that we looked up to or people that we liked when we were kids are no longer living anymore. A lot of them have passed away. Like I have a lot of these like wrestling figures that I collected, back in the 80s and 90s. And when I look at a lot of those guys, almost every single one of them isn't alive anymore. But the memories that I have will never fade. Alec in the building. What's good? No, I'm good, man. Like I said, I had to take 2 days off, to kind of, hope that, hangover effect would leave me. But as every Mariner fan, whether they're watching the World Series or they're not, obviously everyone is still hurt, to be 3 innings away of playing in this game. So again, I had to take a couple days off to clear my head. And, again, it just depends on how committed you are, how much you love whatever team that you're rooting for. For a fair weather fan, it doesn't, bother them. But if you're a fanatic, and someone like myself, watching every pitch, every inning, every game, even the games that we were getting blown out 10-0 in the 2nd inning, other fans could walk away, but this is my full-time job. I can't walk away when we're getting blasted, and you have to go through the ups and the downs. And I think that's what makes you appreciate your players and your team more, instead of being a bandwagon fan and only cheering when your team is doing good. You have to go through the pain and the hurt to be able to experience the joy, down the road. And there's going to be peaks and there's going to be valleys, but it's going to mean a hell of a lot more, when you're a loyal fan, when you finally win it, rather than just being a bandwagon fan and it doesn't mean anything when you win games, either now or in the future. So, top of the 6th inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays. Next up, 0 for 2 with a run, right fielder Teoscar Hernandez, former Blue Jay and Mariner. Batting second, third baseman Mad Max Muncy. And batting third, the X Factor, left fielder Kike Hernandez. Might be batting 180 to 200 in the regular season, but during the postseason, he always lights it up. First pitch, fouled off, high and inside, 0-1 count. Top of the 6th inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays. Sir Anthony Dominguez on the mound, Teoscar Hernandez in the box. I appreciate that. Plus, I want to be able to show, it's not just like, the teams that I call are the only things that I can do. It's not like I can only do Mariners or I can only do, the Buccaneers or the Ducks or the Blazers or the Kraken. I want to be able to, show my range that, nothing is really out of reach. Like we can literally do anything depending on whatever the main event is for that particular day. 1-1 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and 1 strike to Teoscar Hernandez. Top of the 6th inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays. Oh, I'm a big Scott Hall fan. Yeah. Kevin Nash, obviously was Diesel before he was, part of the Outsiders. Obviously we know Hogan had kind of not the greatest, post-wrestling career. There's a lot of people, that even though he just recently passed away, still haven't got over some of the racist remarks that he made as Teoscar strikes out looking. But if we're just talking about the wrestler, Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan, and the NWO and the Hulkamaniacs, that was a big part of my life, But again, sometimes, you realize when you grow up that the heroes that you looked up to might not have really been the best type of person outside of wrestling, Hogan was a heel, obviously with the NWO, and I don't know if anyone really knew that he actually was a heel in real life, and whatnot. So, sometimes you get a little disappointed based on some of the people that you look up to and you realize they might not be what you thought they were when you were a young kid. First pitch from Dominguez to Muncy, low and away, 1-0 count. Yeah, but I'm a big NWO guy. Huge. I mean, I got the jackets, satin jackets. I got the gear. I got the figures. I still rock some of that stuff even to this day. And again, when you rock NWO, someone will always, hit you with the too sweet, somewhere, grocery store and whatnot. So, I got a lot of great memories back then, and wrestling will never be that way ever again. It peaked in 95 to 99. 2-0 pitch, and Muncy pops up and fouls out to third. And that is 2 away. Yes, Piper. I have a Piper figure on the windowsill as well. It's always cool when you can have people that are from like your hometown state and whatnot. Unfortunately, Piper never got the push that he deserved. There was only so many spots, back then, and obviously a lot of favoritism, for certain individuals. But, it's definitely cool when you can have someone like that represent Oregon. First pitch to Kike Hernandez, big swing and a miss, low and away. Yeah, Piper might have been Canadian, but he lived in Oregon, is what we were saying. 0-1 pitch, low and away, 1 ball and 1 strike. Just like, people can be born somewhere, but they may not live there their whole life. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, high and inside, 1 ball and 2 strikes to Kike Hernandez. And down goes Kike, and that is out number 3. Yeah, I'm a big Scott Hall guy. I mean, I got all kinds of old school, NWO figures still, even to this day. And again, it makes you appreciate, if you were alive and you were a fan back then, to be able to watch what we saw in the 80s and then obviously in the 90s, and you're never going to get that type of, wrestling ever again. It's never, ever going to be as big as it was. We actually had wrestlers back then that were like larger than life. And there's still, some guys that are wrestling today, in AEW or WWE that are, pretty big names, but it'll never be like it was when it was like Rock, and Stone Cold, and, RVD and Sabu and ECW. And then obviously going through everything in the 80s and the 90s, with the NWO and DX. And it's either you lived it, or, you experienced it or you didn't and whatnot, but it'll never be the same. Just like with sports in general, in the 80s and 90s, there were better basketball, baseball, football, hockey, tennis, golf players. There was more Hall of Famers, greatness in the 80s and 90s than any other, decades. Like you could get more top 50 players that played in those eras. Obviously, we know with baseball, there was a steroid era, and whatnot. So obviously that, is a little skewed, but it's not like we've seen a Barry Sanders, since he played. We haven't seen a Bo Jackson, since that time period. And, to be able to see Joe Montana and, Jerry Rice and Barry Sanders, Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, Tiger Woods, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Andre Agassi, and, going down, all the different players, Jordan and Magic and Bird, and, going through all of those, it was a very special time growing up, for not only wrestling, but sports in general in the 80s and 90s. So I kind of feel bad for the younger crowd. They might see YouTube videos, but that's not going to do it justice. So let's go to the bottom of the 6th inning. We're knotted up at 2, and let's see who's up next here for the Blue Jays. Next up for the Blue Jays, 1 for 2, playing second base from the first time that he was in the farm, Bo Bichette. Batting second, 1 for 1 with a run and a base on ball, catcher Alejandro Kirk. And Bichette hasn't played second base since like 2019, so he's actually doing pretty good so far. And batting third, the hero for the Blue Jays up to this point, 2-run blast, center fielder Dalton Varsho. Oh, yeah, I love Sting. Red, white, and blue Sting. And then obviously, all the different versions that Sting has gone through. I got a NWO Wolfpack Sting figure over here on one of my desks over here in the studio. One-0 pitch, low and at the knees. Snell is still in there here in the bottom of the 6th. 2 balls and no strikes to Bo Bichette. Yeah, I was more of a Bret the Hitman Hart guy than a Shawn Michaels guy, but again, I'm more NWO than DX. Not that I didn't like, Triple H or Shawn Michaels or Chyna. I actually liked the Road Dogg and Badass Billy Gunn. Those were probably my favorites that were in the group. Not to say that Chyna and Triple H and Shawn Michaels weren't cool. They were, but I was more of the New Age Outlaws were like the cool thing in DX to me. But I was more NWO centered. 2-0 pitch, low and at the knees. 3 balls and no strikes to Bo Bichette. 3-0 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away. 3 balls and 1 strike to Bo Bichette. Three-one pitch, fouled off, low and at the knees. 3-2 pitch, and Bichette with the walk. Bichette to first. Next up is catcher Alejandro Kirk. And again, when the game started and the Blue Jays left bases loaded stranded, us Mariner fans are familiar with that. It's painful, right? And then the Dodgers ended up taking the 2-0 lead. It kind of looked like this was going to be a long day for Toronto. But thankfully, Dalton Varsho hit that home run, and it ended up being a 2-run jack. And now Toronto has a chance to steal this game now. Again, the Dodgers have kind of cooled off, so to speak. And again, the one weakness the Dodgers have is the bullpen. So you're going to see their pitchers, pitch a little bit longer, 6, 7, maybe even 8 innings for some of the guys, and again, depending on the Blue Jay hitters, if they can take advantage of that, like right there, Alejandro Kirk, it could be the deciding factor of the Blue Jays winning not only one game, but maybe even both games at home, as they have the next 3 after that in Los Angeles. So, if the Blue Jays want to win the World Series or actually be competitive, they have to split. But primarily winning the first 2 at home would give them a chance for it to go 6, 7 games. And if you win the first 2, anything can happen. Even with 3 games in Los Angeles after that. And then we got Mark Pryor, the former Chicago Cub that played with Kerry Wood in his 20 Ks back in the day. And obviously, it's cool to be able to see some of these guys that we used to watch a few years back. And Don Mattingly is a part of the coaching crew for the Blue Jays. And, he's never won anything big. And, to be able to be the former manager of the Dodgers and now being a part of Toronto and the Blue Jays roster, very interesting to be able to see some of the guys that are on the outside looking in. Bottom of the 6th inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays. You got Sheehan warming up in the pen. First pitch, low and away, 1-0 count. Yeah, Bret Hart is just angry because Goldberg ended his career, by being reckless. So anytime if you're a superstar and then you have someone that ends your career, of course you're going to be bitter. And Bret still hasn't let go of it, And I don't blame him, He was the excellence of execution. He was the best pure wrestler, like actual wrestler that we had back then. 2-0 pitch, fouled off right down the middle. 2 balls and 1 strike to Dalton Varsho. And he gave away his little cheap stunner shades to the kids. Can you imagine being a kid in the front row and getting Bret Hart to give you his cheap sunglasses? Even though they were little plastic, things, those things would be worth a shitload, to have that kind of memory. And Bret was one of the first guys that actually did something like that back in the 80s and 90s. Now you'll see guys like Cody Rhodes give away his weight belt, which is super cool. But again, Bret was the originator of that. 2-1 pitch, big swing and a miss. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Dalton Varsho. Bottom of the 6th inning, 2-2 Dodgers and Blue Jays. 2-2 pitch, fouled off high and inside. Runners at first and second. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Bottom of the 6th, 2-2 game with no outs. Out of habit, I'm almost in trying to, have the Ken Griffey Jr. bobble and the whole Trident thing. It almost feels like, when I'm doing these streams, it's like, I feel a little torn, man, it should be us here, but it's hard to break that habit, for doing so many games this season, 180 plus. Pitches low and away. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Snell to Varsho. 3-2 pitch, fouled off, low and away. Tries to paint that corner with the slider and just gets a piece. Count is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes with runners at first and second and no outs. Three-two pitch, fouled off right down the middle, off-speed pitch. 81 miles an hour with the curveball by Snell. And you can tell Snell is getting tired now, obviously, at this point. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes. We're still looking for our first dono on the dono train. You know, this is my full-time job, so every dollar counts. If you can show a little bit of love and appreciation to the channel, that would be great. And we typically are looking for 5 to 15 subs. Once we hit that, we'll go to 15 to 30. Oh, and he got him. Snell plunks Varsho. Hopefully he's okay. Kirk to second. Kiner Falefa to third. And now we got bases loaded with no outs, and Snell having a little bit of a mini meltdown. It's also a little bit of fatigue. Remember, he started off the first inning with 30 pitches. He's at 100 right now. And again, they don't really trust the bullpen. You know, they don't really have guys besides maybe Roki Sasaki, who's been good. But other than that, they don't really trust too many of the guys in the pen. So. And Snell's day is done. All right, let's look at Snell's final numbers. 5 innings pitched, 8 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 Ks, 100 pitches, 62 strikes. And now Sheehan is coming in. All right, Emmett Sheehan coming in. ERA of 10 plus. So this could get a little ugly here, you know, unless they're able to get out of this jam. And obviously, if you're the Dodgers, you need to strike out in a double play or a double play and a strikeout. Otherwise, you know, the Blue Jays are going to get this game to be 3-2, 4-2, 5-2 in a hurry. Bottom of the 6th inning, bases loaded, 2-2, Dodgers and Blue Jays, World Series game number 1, and it's been fun to watch. Started off in the top of the 2nd inning, Kike Hernandez singled to center, Teoscar scored 1-0 Dodgers. Then in the top of the 3rd, Will Smith singled to right, Betts scored 2-0 Dodgers. And then it took a couple innings, and then finally in the bottom of the 4th, Dalton Varsho homered to center, 423 feet with Alejandro Kirk on board, and we have a 2-2 tie. But now the Blue Jays are threatening, and they have a very good chance to possibly pull away and put themselves in a very good position to win this game. First pitch from Emmett Sheehan to Ernie Clement. And that is fouled off with the slider right down the middle, 0-1 count. Megan in the building, how are you? Bottom of the 6th inning, 2-2, Dodgers and Blue Jays. Bases loaded and no outs. And a big hit by Ernie Clement right up the middle, and that's going to bring home 1. Wow, big hit there. And again, you know, Emmett Sheehan's got an ERA of 10. And again, that's why they want their starters to go long because they don't trust their bullpen guys for that particular reason right there. You know, you go with a Snell, but he's already at 100 pitches, right? And they wanted Snell to go 8 if he could have. You know, that would have been the strategy for them. And then when you have to go with a guy in the bullpen that you don't trust, us Mariner fans know what that's about. You know, we have certain guys we trust, but then there's other guys that we don't. And Sheehan is not a guy that Dodger fans trust. And just like that, a big RBI, 3-2 Blue Jays. Still bases loaded with no outs. Nice job by Ernie there, coming up big against the, bullpen pitcher that obviously has some struggles. And now we got Nathan Lucas pinch hitting, who's going to come in for Miles Straw. Now let's see if Nathan Lucas can come up with a big play. And again, if Snell didn't have 30 pitches in the first inning and he was able to get out of that jam, again, he probably would have been able to go 8 innings, unless he started to get roughed up. And again, the Blue Jays did a great job to get that pitch count up, so that way he was able to exit this early. First pitch from Sheehan to Lucas, big swing and a miss, 0-1 count. Sorry to hear that. 0-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, high and inside. No balls and 2 strikes to Nathan Lucas. What's good, brother? How are you? I could use a little bit of help with the likes. I don't know if you're going to be here the rest of the stream, but I've been kind of doing it by myself. So, and again, I don't expect every single mod or regular to be here. Obviously a lot of Mariner fans are still a little butthurt, about how the season ended. So I totally get it, but if I can get at least one person to help me out while I'm working, to be able, I can do the subs, but if I can get someone to help out with the likes and the donos, that would help. And not sure if you're going to be here, but if you could, that would be great. Or for at least as long as you can. We haven't got a dono, which might be in part of not me getting any help on that end either, which would be nice if we could get someone to get us going. And then obviously trying to get to 100 would be great as well for the likes. So it'll help out with the metrics with the channel, obviously overall. And, when you do this full time, every dollar counts. Pitches low and at the knees, 2 balls and 2 strikes to Nathan Lucas. Appreciate you. 2-2 pitch, foul, high and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Nathan Lucas. Congratulations. You have been promoted into a mod for all your hard work during the regular season. And obviously, what you've been able to do for me, not only recently, but throughout the year. Congratulations. You've earned it. You should have gotten it actually a little while back, but I have to monitor to see how many I have, and you don't want to have too many. Obviously, for certain people that, come and go, I have to be able to rotate, who's going to be a mod and who's not. But congratulations, you've earned it, my guy. Appreciate your help. Bottom of the 6th inning, bases loaded, 3-2 Blue Jay lead. 3-2 pitch, and Sheehan with a walk. Now it's 4-2 Blue Jays. You got that wrench next to your name. Looking good, my boy. And again, that's why they didn't want to go in with a bullpen. Again, we complain, sometimes about the Mariners, not having guys that we can rely on in the pen, like Brash, who normally is good, Gabe Spire, and even Bizzardo had one bad pitch. But it shows you, even great players fuck up once in a while, like Bizzardo did. One bad pitch, cost us a chance to go to the World Series. But again, when you end up having guys that are shaky, more times than not, this is what's going to happen. 0-1 pitch fouled off by Andres Jimenez. And again, if the Blue Jays want this to go 6-7 games and actually have a chance to win, they got to win the first 2 games or at least split one of the first 2 games, because they got 3 games, obviously, in Los Angeles. But the way that, Toronto has been playing lately, it gives me the belief that they can win a game in Los Angeles. Hell, they might be able to win 2 in Los Angeles. So, we'll see how the series will go. But obviously getting off to a good start for Toronto was very ideal. 0-2 pitch, high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Andres Jimenez. And even though the Mariners, season has ended, I'm not ending, so I'm going to continue to do, baseball, the NFL, college football, maybe a little NHL with the Kraken, maybe a little Blazers, maybe a little NASCAR, we'll do a little bit of everything until we get back to baseball season for the Mariners, obviously. And a big hit. And Jimenez singles to right. Varsho scores. Lucas to second. Clement to third. 5-2 Toronto. And that's what happens when you have your starter that has a meltdown, and then you bring in a guy in the pen, and he even has a worse meltdown than Snell. And again, I can imagine a lot of Dodger fans, or anybody but Emmett Sheehan, his ERA was 10. And obviously it's climbing as we speak. Next up is George Springer. Yeah, I got a new one as well that he just made that I debuted here today. I'll play it now. But uber talented, individual. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats. And again, everything from scratch. And again, it's nice that we can kind of work together, that I can support him. He can support me. I can help get him a little bit more exposure, here on YouTube. And again, I don't listen to music in my free time. I actually listen to his beat catalog, thinking of things that could work for the channel. But I just like to be able to, listen to someone that's putting in their heart and soul into something. Not everyone's got a dream and a goal. And again, I truly do enjoy supporting my friends. And Brooks Beats is definitely one of them. Bottom of the sixth, bases loaded, 5-2 Toronto. And Springer with a little dribbler, throw home, and they get the force out there at home. Clement is out, and that is one away. And some of his beats are put together a little bit better than some of the others, but again, as soon as I hear, his stuff, it's like, it reminds me of him, because again, he doesn't try to be like anybody else. He's a true, individual through and through. And again, it's just most people that make beats, a lot of their shit sounds the same. He's like one of the first people, that I've heard in a long, long time where you can listen to one and then another, and they don't sound anything alike. Some will be, kind of in the same realm, but with his catalog, I think he's made like 52 beats within the last couple months. And the diversity and talent that this guy has is, incredible. And obviously the more support that I can get, that means that I can actually give back to him, but again, it all depends on, people like yourself, in the room to be able to show some love so that way I can pay it forward to him. So, and again, he, wasn't going to charge me, anything, for the beats, but just in my good nature, I ended up sending him some money a couple weeks ago, based on the, good support that we got with the Mariners. And obviously, the more money that I can get donated, that means the more money I can send to him to, keep his dream alive and to give him the confidence that, he's not just talented, but his stuff is good enough to get paid for, and I told him, at some point, you're going to be able to get to a point where, you're going to be able to do beats full time. And all it takes is one person, to be able to buy a beat for X amount of dollars. And then you don't have to work a regular job, possibly for a couple months, 6 months, or even a year. So shout out to my boy, talented. Bottom of the sixth, 5-2 Blue Jays. Barger in the box, and they're going to be making a change now from Sheehan. That experience was terrible. And now they're going to be going to Banda. All right, Banda is coming in. And Barger is coming in here as well. Bottom of the sixth, 5-2 Blue Jays. Bases loaded. Addison Barger pinch hitting coming in, and Anthony Banda coming in for Sheehan, and that experience was not kind to the Dodger fan base. First pitch, low and away with the slider off speed, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, fouls it off high and inside. 1 ball and 1 strike to Addison Barger. Diane in the building, what's good? Yeah, I got really no problem with any fan of any fan base until it ends up, being negative, or you're starting to like a verbal attack, on me or the people in the room. And as long as it's cordial, I don't mind fans of any fan base, but, it kind of just depends on the individual. And, everyone is welcome until they're not. And I think that's a fair statement to say on any stream. If you have chat etiquette, you'll be good to go, But again, a lot of people don't have that chat etiquette. Back. See ya! Wow! And just like that, Barger. Wow! Are you kidding me? Unbelievable. And just like that, a grand salami. Barger, grand salami. Lucas on board. Jimenez on board. Springer scored on board. And they just brought him in to pinch hit. And what does he do? He says, goodbye. 9-2 Blue Jays. This one is over. And it shows you how important the bullpen pitching is. Just like with the Mariners, we can end up being great. But again, if your bullpen isn't good, it's going to lose you or win you more games than any other spot on your team. And again, the Dodgers started off strong, and then obviously the Blue Jays had to catch up. And then the meltdown started happening with Snell and then Sheehan. And now you're getting another meltdown here by Anthony Banda, and it just keeps getting worse and worse for LA and better for Toronto here in Game 1. Good for them. But again, remember, it's going to be a long series more than likely. And, for any of the people that thought it was going to be a Dodger sweep, this is not the fucking Brewers. This is the Blue Jays, and I think the Mariners, would have matched up pretty well also. Again, I think the Mariners and the Blue Jays were playing better than the Brewers, at that point. And, again, maybe the Dodgers thought that they were going to have an easy path like Milwaukee. But again, just because they played in a 7-game set, and it ended up going ALCS Game 7 between Toronto and Seattle, maybe they thought, hey, we're going to be able to dominate them. But it shows you, Toronto is hungry as well, and they definitely needed to get wins at home in Game 1 and Game 2 as Vladdy gets another base knock there, because you got to remember it goes 2-3-2. So it's going to be first 2 games in Toronto, 3 in LA, and then 2 in Toronto at the end, Game 6 and Game 7, if we get there. And based on what we've seen in Game 1, it's definitely looking like it's going to be a 6 or 7 game series, which will be good for sports. Next up is Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. First pitch, takes a strike swinging. Big swing and a miss, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 1 strike to Kiner-Falefa. Yeah, but you also have to remember, we were 3 outs away, or not 3 innings away, from being in this position, and again, we had our best bullpen pitcher, that just gave up a pitch right down the middle to Springer and we lost. And again, if that pitch doesn't happen, we probably win 3-1. So, but you got to give credit where credit is due. And eventually, what Toronto is doing, Seattle will be able to do in the future. Bottom of the 6th, 9-2 Blue Jays. Runner at first with 2 outs. Next up is Alejandro Kirk. Kirk in the box. Anthony Banda on the mound. And again, the one weakness that the Dodgers, have or had or currently have is the bullpen. And again, they are trying to have their pitchers go 6, 7, 8 innings, so that way they can only use their closer, and then move on. But again, they're not going to be able to do that against Toronto. And a big hit by Alejandro Kirk. And that is goodbye, baseball. 11-2 Toronto. And again, if you don't have good bullpen pitching, this is what happens. And again, that's the one thing that might cost the Dodgers the World Series, is that their bullpen isn't really good, except for Roki Sasaki. Besides Roki, that's about it. But Roki's the closer. So if you got, certain guys that need to come in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and you don't trust them, then this is what you're looking at. And now, will they be better at home in LA? Of course they will be, and they might even be better tomorrow, when they end up playing in game 2. But tonight, game 1 is all Blue Jays. I mean, they have 11 runs and we're in the 6th inning. But again, it shows you Snell had 30 pitches in the 1st inning. He wasn't able to go 8 innings like they planned. That was the plan. Him go 8, they take him out, they bring in Roki, game over. But again, it doesn't work like that, when you play the Blue Jays or the Mariners or, certain teams that might be hot at the moment. Yeah, it might have worked, when you ended up doing it against the Brewers. But let's be real, the Blue Jays are much better than the Brewers at this point in the season. And that is out number 3. And again, the bleeding continues. 9 runs in the 6th inning. Congratulations, Toronto. 11-2. Let's go to the top of the 7th inning. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. We're still looking for our first dono on the dono train. Let's go. And we gained 3 subs since the last commercial break. 24 subs away from 23,200. We just broke 5.1 million views on the channel a few days back. Hit 23,000 subs a few days ago as well. And again, next goal will be 25,000 subs and 10 million views on the channel. Shout out to all the individuals that have supported the brand, whether it be this year or from years past. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Shout out to all the new subs in the building. Next up for the Dodgers in the top of the 7th inning, 1 for 2 with a K, second baseman Tommy Edman. Batting second, center fielder in the 9-hole, Andy Pages. And batting third, DHing Shohei Otani. I appreciate that. Appreciate you. Yeah, 13 hits and 11 runs, but really it's the bullpen. Like I said, starting pitching for the Dodgers is fantastic. You got Snell, you got Yamamoto, you got Shohei that can pitch. They got plenty of starting pitching, but really the only weakness that the Dodgers had all year was their bullpen. And again, they probably thought that they wouldn't get exposed this early in the series, but again, they definitely did. Snell, had 30 pitches in the 1st inning, ended up going 100. He had a little mini meltdown. They brought in Sheehan. He had a meltdown. They brought in Banda. He had a meltdown. Hard to win a game when you have 3 pitchers that have meltdowns, and that typically turns into an L. 1-0 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and no strikes to Tommy Edman. And they got Fisher in the game here for the Blue Jays. Braden Fisher. 2-0 pitch, low and at the knees, and it looks like Fisher's having a little mini meltdown here for the Blue Jays. 3 balls and no strikes to Tommy Edman. 3-0 pitch, and that is a walk. So after we've seen the Dodgers have a meltdown, the Blue Jays are having a mini meltdown here with Braden on the first batter. Next up is Andy Pages. And if the Blue Jays bullpen continues to have a mini meltdown, you would assume the Dodgers might score a few more runs before this game is over. They might even get to 5 if they're lucky, but again, with the other team at 11, with no stop in them anytime soon, I mean, hell, the Blue Jays might get to 15 before this game is over, but not what anyone really expected. But again, if you are familiar with the rosters, again, the Blue Jays also have some guys in the pen that are a little shaky, but it's not as bad as Los Angeles. First pitch in there, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. 22 to 100, let's get there. One pitch, fouled off right down the middle with the slider from Fisher. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Andy Pages. Top of the 7th inning, 11-2 Toronto. What's your schedule like? Moving forward, like tomorrow and the other games in the World Series? Are you going to be available? It would be nice to be able to have someone to help me out while I'm grinding away. But the plan is to do every World Series game. So today, World Series Game 1. Tomorrow, World Series Game 2. Sunday, we're going to do Steelers versus Packers as the series shifts to Los Angeles. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll be doing the World Series. And then obviously when Thursday comes around, then obviously possibly Thursday Night Football. And then I think Game 6 and Game 7 would be next Friday and Saturday if we get to that point, as Pages strikes out looking. Next up is Shohei Otani, 0 for 3 with 2 Ks, and he might go 0 for 4, here today, but he definitely will, get his bat going at some point before the series is over. It's just a matter of time. First pitch from Fisher to Otani, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. But it definitely shows you the difference between good pitching and suspect pitching. If your bullpen isn't good or your starter gets roughed up, it just gets worse and worse. It's like a snowball effect, and you just hope that it'll, you can stop the bleeding. But again, you go from one guy to the next, and if you don't have any confidence in any of those guys, then you're going to continue to get rocked. 1-1 pitch, takes a strike looking, high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Shohei Otani. It's going to be a good game on Sunday between the Packers and the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers going against his former team. It'll be in Pittsburgh. It'll be definitely a game that will be exciting to watch. That's for sure if you're an NFL fan. And we will be doing the live stream for that. And then obviously once the World Series is over, we'll transition into NFL, Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night, college football on Saturday, and then maybe even a Kraken or Blazer stream, mixed in at some point, to be able to have filler streams, throughout the week. Or if there's a good NHL matchup or a good NBA matchup, for example. But, usually we don't focus on the NHL or the NBA until baseball is over. And then once we see what's available on the schedule. Top of the 7th, runner at first with 1 out, 11-2 Toronto lead. Fisher on the mound, Otani in the box. 1-2 pitch, fouled up. And it is gone! Shohei Otani, big 2-run blast. And again, when you have a meltdown, the Dodgers, are familiar with that, but the Braden Fisher experiment, having a meltdown there, and like I said, Otani can go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, but eventually he's going to get you. He's the best player on the planet, and he ends up striking here in Game 1, but they're down 7 runs now. Big 2-run jack by Shohei Otani. Way to bring a little electricity for the Dodgers, even though, the pitching staff is having a meltdown. Next up is Mookie Betts. First pitch from Fisher to Betts, takes a strike looking, high and away, 0-1 count. And obviously, it's not likely that the Dodgers come back all the way, but again, it is possible for them, if they get a similar type of meltdown, from the pitchers in the Toronto bullpen who have struggled at times, they might be able to get, I'm thinking the maximum amount of runs that the Dodgers could probably get is 8 or 9, and that would still put them too short. And that's also assuming that Toronto ends up not scoring anymore. And, based on, the pitching staff for the Dodgers, the Blue Jays might be able to knock in a few more as well. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss by Mookie, and that is 2 away. Down goes Mookie Betts. 2 outs. Next up, the future Hall of Famer, Freddie Freeman. Braden Fisher on the mound, Freddie Freeman in the box. Awesome. I appreciate that. Anything that you can do to help at some point, if you got a little free time, would be great. Oh, 1 pitch, big swing and a miss right down the middle. No balls and 2 strikes from Fisher to Freeman. Oh, 2 pitch, fouled off, high and away. No balls and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Top of the 7th inning, 11-4 Blue Jays lead against the Dodgers here in World Series game number 1 in Toronto. Oh, 2 pitch, high and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Yeah, it's on FS1, or Fox. If you end up having a Fox Sports app, you can watch it on there. Obviously, there's streaming links that you can watch, but if you watch one of those, you'll probably be 15 to 30 seconds behind. But that's better than not being able to watch it at all. So, top of the 7th inning, 11-4 Toronto. 1-2 pitch. Freeman gets a good piece of that, but that's going to stay in play. And that is out number 3. And we gained 3 more subs since the last commercial break. 21 more subs to go to 23,200. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's see who's up next here for the Blue Jays in the bottom of the 7th. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Next up for the Blue Jays, 2 for 3 with an RBI, third baseman Ernie Clement. Batting second, 0 for 0 with a run, RBI, and a base on ball, Nathan Lucas. And batting third, 1 for 3 with a run, RBI, and 2 Ks, shortstop in the 9-hole, Andres Jimenez. Banda's day is done, and they're going to go with Robleski, and I don't know if that's going to be any better for the Dodgers. They have big problems with their bullpen. And that's not just a problem for today. It's been a problem all year. All right, Banda is out. Justin Robleski is in, but not sure if that's really going to make a difference. But we will see. Well, really what it comes down to is our bullpen is better, than what the Dodgers have. Obviously, we know the Dodgers starting pitching, normally is good, and obviously they looked invincible when they played the Brewers, whether it be Otani or Snell or Yamamoto, and they couldn't hit, not only just home runs, but just basic hits. And obviously that's, the David and Goliath kind of story that we thought we were going to get. But again, whether it been Toronto or Seattle, we match up really, really well. And again, if it comes down to the bullpen, Toronto's and Seattle's is much better than LA's. And again, if you can get hot at the right time, and it's not like all of these runs came off Snell, he had a couple, but not as many as the 3 guys in the pen now that they're using, and they're all getting rocked. 0-2 pitch, fouled off, high and inside. No balls and 2 strikes to Ernie Clement. Now, LA's defense isn't weak. It's the bullpen, plain and simple. The bullpen is not good. And again, if you, just like, when you watch the Mariners or anyone else, when Brash came in and fucked up, or Carlos Vargas, like, you can have a 4-0 lead and then have a guy come in the pen and blow it, and unfortunately for the Dodgers, they had 2 guys back to back that blew it on top of Snell that got a middle bit of a mini meltdown. And, when you got 3 guys that fuck up in a row, then this is how you have an 11-4 game. Next up is Nathan Lucas. First pitch to Nathan Lucas, fouls it off high and inside, 0-1 count. The bullpen is going to win you or lose you more games than any other, position group overall in baseball. You can have a 5-0 lead and all of a sudden have a weak bullpen, and then you could lose 6-5, and it happens all the time. In play, and Lucas grounds out to third, throw to first, and that is 2 away. Next up is shortstop, 1 for 3, Andres Jimenez. First pitch, high and away, 1-0 count. And it kind of sucks, for the, players that are playing, throughout the game to see the bullpen struggle so bad. Even if you end up having a good lead or you're kind of close, and then you just have a meltdown after a meltdown after a meltdown. And this is like an extreme, version of a meltdown that obviously the Dodgers are having with 4 straight pitchers. You normally don't see it this bad, but again, the Dodgers bullpen woes continue here in the World Series. 2-0 pitch, high and inside, 3 balls and no strikes to Andres Jimenez. But again, the game plan for the Dodgers was to get their starting pitchers to pitch 6, 7, 8 innings, so that way they would only have to use maybe 1 or 2 guys, and that way they could kind of hide, their weakness. But obviously, if your starter ends up getting roughed up like Snell did with 30 pitches in the first inning and leaving with 100 with bases loaded, that doesn't set up the next guy very well. And, you go from Sheehan and, to Banda to now with Robleski, and, 4 straight guys having meltdowns ain't going to win you a game. 3-1 pitch, fouled off, and that's out of play. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Andres Jimenez. 3-2 pitch, fouled off, high and away. 4-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour by Justin Robleski. 3-2 pitch, fouled off, high and away. Count still full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Andres Jimenez. Yeah, that's why it's important to be able to watch other teams than just your own, so that way you can scout and understand what you're getting into before the game even starts. Or you can have someone like me that'll do that for you, and I'll give you the laydown. And that is out number 3. Let's see who's up next here in the top of the 8th. Dodgers need 7 runs, so they need to score 4 in the 8th and 3 in the 9th. And the chance of that happening is almost 0, but we'll see what the bullpen looks like here for the Blue Jays, because obviously they've had a few meltdowns, not just against the Mariners, but in the regular season as well. So we'll see what they get here. Next up for the Dodgers, 1 for 2 with an RBI and a base on ball, catcher Will Smith. Batting second, 0 for 3 with a run and a K, right fielder Teoscar Hernandez. And batting third, 1 for 3 with a K, third baseman Max Muncy. And Bassett is coming in for Fisher. And obviously Fisher didn't really do that well, but we'll see what we get here out of Bassett. So let me get the Bassett photo here linked up. All right, Chris Bassett coming into the game. $20 subs to go to 23,200. All right, we're at 87 likes, 13 more to hit the goal. We're almost there. And we're still looking for the first dono on the dono train 3 hours in. Top of the 8th, 11-4 Toronto. First pitch from Bassett to Will Smith. Takes a strike looking low and away. 0-1 count. Oh, 0-1 pitch. Fouled off. Low and away. No balls and 2 strikes to Will Smith. 0-2 pitch. High and away. Four-seam fastball, 93 miles an hour by Bassett. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and no outs. 11-4 Blue Jay lead. Little slow dribbler towards first base. And a toe tap there by Vladdy, and that is 1 away. Appreciate that, TJ. I was hoping someone would be able to step up at some point or another. Thank you so much, man. Every dollar counts. All it takes is one person, and that leads to another. Stacks, racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. We're at 5, 95 to go to hit the goal. Appreciate you. Next up is Teoscar Hernandez, 0 for 3 with a run and a K. Appreciate you. First pitch to Teoscar, who played for the Blue Jays and the Mariners, now for the Dodgers. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, high and away. No balls and 2 strikes to Teoscar Hernandez. Looks like we're almost there. 92, Dark Passenger says. 8 more to go. Love me some Dexter. 0-2 pitch, high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Bassett to Hernandez. I mean, if the meltdown, didn't happen for the Dodgers bullpen, this game would probably be relatively close. maybe 6-4 Blue Jay lead, but again, when you have one guy that goes to another guy to another and they all have meltdowns, this is what happens. You got to give the Blue Jays credit. 1-2 pitch, fouled up and out of play. Good souvenir for that fan there in Toronto. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and 1 out. 11-4 Blue Jay lead. Now, we don't talk about politics here. Top of the 8th, 11-4 Toronto. Sports brings us together. Politics separates us, And again, in the way that we are living in this world, there's already enough negativity by so many people, So, again, that's why we love sports. Doesn't matter what age or race you are. If you're a man or a woman, we can all come together and enjoy something like sports. It brings people together, besides the haters and the trolls. Pitches low and away. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Teoscar Hernandez. Three-two pitch, and Teoscar gains a walk. Teoscar to first. Next up is third baseman Max Muncy. Yoshinobu Yamamoto versus Kevin Gossman. Can't wait for that matchup tomorrow. And we assume the game will be a little bit closer. But again, if the Dodger bullpen plays like this today, tomorrow, they're going to get smoked again. Unless they end up scoring enough runs before the bullpen meltdown happens. Like if they can end up putting up 7-8 runs before the meltdown happens, then they might be able to be okay and squeak out a win. But, we'll see. First pitch takes a strike looking low and at the knees, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Max Muncy. I appreciate you. 1-1 pitch, takes a strike looking low and in the zone. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Bassett to Muncy. Plus it gives an opportunity for people that only saw me do Mariners that, I can do a lot more than just Mariner streams. I can do anything baseball related, anything football related, anything basketball or hockey related or wrestling related or NASCAR related. There really isn't anything that we can't do here. So it's a good opportunity for, people to see that we're not one dimensional here like a lot of other channels are. 1-2 pitch, fouled off, high and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Bassett to Muncy. One-two pitch, high and away. Curveball, off speed, 72 miles an hour by Bassett, missing by inches. 2 balls and 2 strikes with a runner at first and 1 out. 11-4 Toronto lead here in the top of the 8th. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Incredible talent. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and away. Down goes Muncy, and that is 2 away. Next up for the Dodgers, 1 for 3 with an RBI and 2 Ks, left fielder Kike Hernandez. First pitch from Bassett to Kike, takes a strike looking high and away, 0-1 count. Top of the 8th inning, 11-4 Blue Jay lead. And again, Snell did a pretty good job before he ended up, getting to 100 pitches and having that little mini meltdown. But obviously they didn't score enough. And once you go to the bullpen, if you don't trust it, things like this can happen. And again, if the Dodger bullpen was better, it wouldn't have exploded to an 11-4 lead for Toronto. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Kike Hernandez. And also, you're going to need more production, not out of just Mookie and Freddie and Shohei, but the others. You're going to need like Teoscar to, actually get a home run or some big ribbies, or you might need Teoscar to hit 2 home runs in one of these games. You might need Muncy to homer. You might need Kike, to go out of the, go yard. And, you're going to need, not only your guys at the top that are Hall of Famers and Shohei, Mookie, and Freddie, but you're going to need the 4, 5, and 6, and especially the 7, 8, and 9 to step up even more. Big swing and a miss. And down goes Kike, and that is the end of the Dodgers here in the top of the 8th inning. Nice job by Chris Bassett shutting the door down on the Dodger hitters in that inning. Let's see who's up next here for the Blue Jays in the bottom of the 8th. Next up for the Blue Jays, 2 for 4 with a run, DHing George Springer. Batting second, 1 for 1, left fielder Davis Schneider. And batting third, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now Dodgers going with another pitcher. The Justin Robleski experiment is over. Now they're going to bring in Klein. I got to get the Will Klein photo here. You got to make sure you work. You got to grind. Can't skip any corners. Got to make sure we're doing every single player. All right, next up is Will Klein. I'll see how he does for the Dodgers bullpen. And again, leading off in the bottom of the 8th will be George Springer. On deck, Davis Schneider. And batting third this inning, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Let him know, TJ. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Sounds like we only need a couple more likes to be able to hit the goal to get to 100. We're at 5 on the dono train, 95 to go. And we've already gained 15 plus subs here today. Let's see if we can gain a few more before the game is over. And gained a couple more since the last commercial break. 20 subs to go to 23,200. Let's go. First pitch for Will Klein to George Springer, fouled off right down the middle, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch, low and away to George Springer with the sweeper, 92 miles an hour. 1 ball and 1 strike from Klein to Springer. Bottom of the 8th, 11-4 Toronto lead. One pitch, big swing and a miss. 1 ball and 2 strikes to George Springer. I mean, usually there's only a few fan bases, that get a little crazy. Like obviously the Mariners and the Astros hate each other, so obviously a lot of Astro fans are not going to be a fit on this channel, just based on their verbiage that they like to use and whatnot. And, there's been a few that have been able to be keepers that are a part of this channel on a regular basis that are Astro fans. But, again, it just kind of depends on the individual overall. 1-2 pitch and Springer flies out to left. But again, we'll welcome anybody of any fan base anywhere in the world. but it's really about, chat etiquette and, being respectful. And again, that is a problem, not only with the younger generation, but some older generation people as well. So. Next up is Addison Barger, who at his last at-bat hit a grand salami when he came in to pinch hit, just like this photo here. First pitch from Will Klein to Addison Barger. Takes a strike looking right down the middle, 0-1 count. And Barger with a nice single to left. 2 for 2 coming off the bench. Nice job by Addison Barger. And he's probably thinking, why didn't I start this game? But obviously, Bo Bichette was in the lineup for the first time in a long time, so that's part of it. Next up is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., one of the hottest players in the postseason with Shohei Otani. 2 for 3 with a run and a base on ball. And it just feels like it's, a matter of time, before Vladdy homers. It might not be today, but, it's almost a given that he'll homer at least once or twice in the World Series. Hell, he's good enough to homer, twice in a game. He's that good. So 0-1 pitch, fouled off right down the middle, four-seam fastball by Klein. 99 miles an hour, some good heat there. And we'll see if he can end up getting out of this inning unscathed. O2 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Bottom of the 8th, 11-4, Toronto lead. It's like the people that, end up going to, a stream, for a team that's not yours. And then you go in there and cause, problems. At some point you have to mature and not be so petty. It's not a win on anybody's part when, people do that. But again, we're living in a world as that gets popped up and popped out, and that is 2 away. But we are living in a world now where people would rather see a streamer, have a meltdown for their favorite team losing, then they would rather watch that than actually see a streamer, win something big for their team. It's kind of a sad world that we live in, but, I guess there's so many people out there that are miserable and they want to try to make other people miserable as well and try to find some joy in someone else's pain because their life stinks, but I will always root for others to win. Especially my friends. Big facts. People that got dreams and goals. First pitch from Klein to Kiner Falefa, fouls it off, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, fouled off, high and inside. Unfortunately, it only allows you to like once. Now, that would be cool if you were able to, but again, then you would get someone that would just be sitting there hitting the like button, and then all of a sudden, certain streams would have 5,000 likes, and YouTube would not allow that. Bottom of the 8th, 11-4 Toronto. Will Klein on the mound. Isaiah Kiner Falefa in the box. 0 for 1 with a run so far for Kiner Falefa coming in to pinch hit. There would just be one individual all stream that would just be sitting there, and their job would be just to get the likes as high as you possibly can, 5,000 to 10,000, and yeah, that would definitely skew the numbers. And Kiner Falefa pops out to Kike Hernandez, and that is out number 3. And we finally got a pitcher in the bullpen for the Dodgers that didn't have a meltdown. His name is Will Klein, and they may need to use him later in the series because everyone else has been untrustworthy. And let's go to the top of the 9th inning, and let's see who is up for the Dodgers. They're down by 7. Are they going to get 7? No. Can they get 1 or 2 more? Maybe, but again, it definitely is going to be a Blue Jay win. And I'm very curious to see, how it goes tomorrow. And if the Dodgers are going to win tomorrow, hell, they might need Yamamoto to go fucking 8 innings. So that way they only have to play one other pitcher. Because if he ends up only going 4, 5, or 6, and they have to bring in these bullpen guys that stink. They're going to lose the first 2 games on the road. And obviously we know the Dodgers are good enough to win 3 in a row at home. But remember, it's the first of 4 that's champ. So it definitely is looking like it's going to be a 6 or a 7 game series at this point. And obviously if Toronto wins the first 2 games, they actually have a chance to win it all. And again, that's the very pure David and Goliath story. Again, everyone across the globe just assumed, the Dodgers are going to sweep. The Dodgers are going to win in 5. The Dodgers are going to win in 6. But again, the Dodgers aren't playing the fucking Brewers. They're playing Toronto. And obviously, there's no belief system, for Blue Jay fans in a scenario where they think, well, we're going to get smoked. They obviously understand that there is a weakness that they can exploit, and that's the bullpen for the Dodgers, and they were able to exploit that in game 1. So great start for Toronto, and let's see how this 9th inning ends up here for the Dodgers, down by 7. Next up, 1 for 2 with a run, base on ball and a K, second baseman Tommy Edman. Batting second, center fielder Andy Pages. And batting third, DHing Shohei Otani. There we go. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. I appreciate you, man. Congratulations on your new status. And I appreciate the help. And sometimes all I need is just one other person to be able to help out. So appreciate you. And Bassett still in there for the Blue Jays. And Kirk gets the pop-up on Tommy Edman, and that is 1 away. Nice job by Chris Bassett. Edman fouling out. Down goes Tommy, 1 away. Next up, 0 for 3 with 2K, center fielder Andy Pages. On deck is Shohei Otani. First pitch from, Lauer is in the game. I was going to say, I didn't think Bassett was still going to be in there. It's Lauer in the game, Pages in the box. First pitch, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, high and inside. 1 ball and 1 strike from Lauer to Pages. Lauer on the mound, Pages in the box, pitches high and inside, 2 balls and 1 strike from Eric Lauer to Andy Pages. And Pages lines out to right on a 2-1 pitch into right field, and that is 2 away. And now the Blue Jays are 1 out away from being victorious in game number 1. Next up, the best player on the planet, DHing Shohei Otani. 1 for 4 with a run, 2 RBIs, 2 Ks, and a 2-run jack. Let's see if Shohei can hit a home run to get it to 5, but obviously this game is getting very close to ending. First pitch, big swing and a miss by Otani, 0-1 count. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Top of the 9th, 11-4, Blue Jay lead. Lauer on the mound, Otani in the box. And I will be live tomorrow for Game 2, Gossman versus Yamamoto. And that'll be at the same time, 5 o'clock Pacific. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Shohei Otani. 1-1 pitch, low and away. Again, slider missing badly there. 85 miles an hour there by Lauer. 2 balls and 1 strike to Shohei Otani. No problem. Congratulations, Blue Jay. 2-1 pitch, low and away. 3 balls and 1 strike to Shohei Otani. Top of the 9th inning, 11-4, Toronto lead. Three-one pitch, and Otani to first. Next up, 1 for 3 with a run, base on ball and a K, Mookie Betts. I appreciate that. You know, I gotta give a lot of love and credit to my parents, obviously with the genetics and whatnot. Even when I was a young kid, people said I had a TV radio voice even when I was young. So, obviously it's carried over into a dream and a goal, and I appreciate that and the kind words. First pitch from Lauer to Betts, takes a strike looking high and away, 0-1 count. Oh, throw to first to try to pick off Otani. Almost got him. And there's no need to really review it when you're up 7 in the top of the 9th with 2 outs. But that was really close. So the schedule will be Game 2 of the World Series tomorrow on Saturday at 5. And then we're going to do Sunday Night Football at 5, between the Steelers and the Packers. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Game 3, Game 4, Game 5, 5 o'clock Pacific in LA. And then once we have those, then Thursday Night Football. And then Thursday Night Football will transition into possibly Game 6 and Game 7 back in Toronto if we're at that point, which it seems like we will. And now they're reviewing to see if Otani is out at first, and then that would be game over. Top of the 9th inning, 11-4 Toronto. Runner at first with 2 outs. Eric Lauer on the mound. Mookie Betts in the box. And they're still reviewing to see if Shohei Otani got his fingers on first base quick enough before the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. tag. Nah, because when I do football games, obviously, the Bucks are going to beat the Saints. But again, I usually will get, better support if we end up doing Thursday night, Monday night, and Sunday night, and if I do a Bucks game at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m., if I get the support, I'll do it, but again, if I have another option, I'll watch that game on my own. But if we have a better chance for likes and subs and views and donos where it's later in the evening where more people can join, then I'm going to go with the calculated decision on doing what's best for the channel, not, what's best for me. So obviously, doing every Duck game and every Buck game would be, something I would love to do. But if I'm not getting support, doing the Ducks or the Buccaneers, week in and week out, then sometimes I have to pivot. I'll watch those games on my own and then look for an alternative solution. So 0-1 pitch, high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Mookie Betts as Shohei is safe at first. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Mookie Betts. I appreciate that. Appreciate you, Mikey. 1-2 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Mookie Betts. Now, you also have to remember, this isn't just a hobby for me. This is my full-time job. So obviously just doing streams and not getting support, that's not going to pay the bills. I got to be able to take care of my pup and, being able to, do the basic things, pay the internet bill, the streaming fee. And so that way I can continue to do the dream. So, Sometimes I have to pivot from things I want to do on stream, but if it's not going to make any sense to do it, then I have to kind of pivot. 2-2 pitch, fouled off, low and at the knees, and that is out of play. 2 balls and 2 strikes with a runner at first. Shohei Otani and 2 outs, 11-4, Blue Jay lead. Two-two pitch, fouled off, high and inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes with a runner at first and 2 outs, 11-4, Toronto lead. Bye, Diane. Nice meeting you. Yeah, Naylor, it will happen. Polo is 50-50, depends on the money, but for sure, Garver, Caleb Ferguson, Gino, and a few others are gone, more than likely. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and that is the ball game. Down goes Mookie, and a great victory for the Toronto Blue Jays. All right, that is it, and I appreciate you so much with your help. And again, we wouldn't have been able to hit our numbers without you. So again, just getting a little bit of support definitely goes a long ways, and I appreciate you. Congratulations on your new mod status. You've earned it, and should have already had it a few weeks ago. And now I have to pivot, obviously, and look through some of my other options, so that way we don't have too many. But I appreciate you and all the love and support. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And again, final score in Game 1 in the World Series, Blue Jays 11, Dodgers 4, and we will be live tomorrow for Game 2. And again, I can't wait to see what we get in that matchup between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, and I'm out. Gang.